Hello, good morning, and many thanks indeed for joining us on AM Live. It is Wednesday, the 22nd of January, and we have a very interesting show for you ahead. Of course, you all know when it is Wednesday, it is Standing on Guard, which is up next. Our guests are already here in studio, as you saw, Ahmed Hashi. We have also Dr. Hassan Khanenje, Professor Nomi Demba. We're eagerly waiting for Peter Kagwanja and Dr. Mumo Nzao to join us much later in the course of the program. But for now, Standing on Guard. But before we drill deeper, let's see what is off the press this morning. And this is what is fresh off the press today. Ruto headed for public clash with Raila. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. After months of sparring over mode of implementing recommended changes, Deputy President and ODM leader could finally come face to face. This story continues on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also still on the front page of the Daily Nation, there is an alert here as deadly coronavirus spreads in China, with hundreds of passengers traveling between Kenya and China daily. Risk of the infectious virus entering the country is becoming real. Of course, we shall also pick up this with our panelists. This is a security threat as well, so to speak. So you have the story tucked away on page 12 of the Daily Nation. Leaders set for Mombasa meeting. That is a flag there, of course, for this particular splash that we have today. And science closer to beating cancer. Some good news here. Scientists have discovered a new type of cells that can recognize and kill most types of cancer, raising hopes for a universal cancer therapy. Researchers at Cardiff University in the United Kingdom say the T-cell can be used, to treat a wide range of cancers compared to currently available treatments. This is yet to be tested on living patients. However, in a laboratory studies, immune cells equipped with the new receptors were shown to kill lung, skin, blood, colon, breast, bone, and prostate, ovarian, kidney, and cervical cancers. The story continues on page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, battle for utility. You pull out magazine inside the Daily Nation every day. It is a close contest between the Volkswagen variant, the Mazda 3 and Honda Stream. Find all the details also tucked away inside the DN2 magazine today. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Standard and the rest of the dailies. And this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Standard. State reopens 2004 Ruto land fraud case. That is a story on the front page of the Standard today. 9 years after court acquitted Deputy President of Ngong Forest plot for lack of evidence, detectives question directors of companies that handled their transaction with Kenya Pipeline to establish beneficiaries of the 272 million shillings paid. A sitting judge is among the big names lined up for grilling. And we have a bite here from Kato Kigen, a lawyer, saying, quote unquote, he, that is the investigator, wants to know who signed sale agreements and who was paid for the sale. All these were on trial in the case prosecuted by CID from 2004 to 2011. The DCI couldn't say motive for the unorthodox and, in my view, vain attempt to reopen the case. So this is what is headlining the front page of the Standard today. Also showdown as Tanga Tanga joins BBI rallies. Deputy President allies now declare they will attend handshake rallies to scuttle an alleged scheme to compile a clandestine report vowing to hold parallel meetings and take charge of forums in the perceived strongholds. And the story continues on page 11 of today's Standard. Drama as Waititu trial starts in Senate is all about the impeachment of Waititu. Senators vote to hear case against Kiambu governor in full plenary after hours of heated debate. Senator Majority Whip Kipchumba Murkomen lost bid for case to be heard by a small group also. End of shopping mall craze spells doom for investors. That is another story that you want to follow inside the Standard this morning. Let's see what we have on top here, if we have anything there as well. Millionaire trader with zero tax. Let me try and zoom out. Tax returns. It's a puzzle here. State One's suspected gold dealer Jared Otieno to forfeit 2 vehicles worth 62 million shillings, arguing he had declared to the taxman since 2014 that he had no non-source of income. And the story continues on page 8 of the Standard this morning. Let's move on and to see what we have inside the Star and the rest of the dailies. And this is what we have on the front page of the Star. Where's my Star? That is the Star for you. It says, DP Ruto hatches scheme to hijack Raila's BBI rallies. DP allies plan to join meetings, take charge and voice concerns. Haji to send technical experts to Mombasa ahead of Saturday rally. The story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star today. And there is a standalone picture here. This is a related picture, I should say. And we can see here, after attending a Jubilee meeting in Nairobi yesterday, mark my words, they are holding brief there together. And of course, that is related to the story. And factions play out as senators reject probe committee. Factions play out as senators reject probe committees. Another story that you want to follow inside the Star this morning. Divisions in Jubilee played out yesterday in the Senate during the consideration of an impeachment motion against Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu. Kileweke leaning legislators ganged up with their NASA counterparts to reject the list of 11-member committee proposed by Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen. And also, Uhuru's Big Four pet projects get 1.3 trillion shillings. That is another story you can follow on page 3. 1.3 trillion shillings has been earmarked for the Big Four in the next 3 years. Pressed for time, President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration has prioritized projects tied to the head of state's legacy, whose pillars are health, food security, manufacturing, and affordable housing. You can follow the story on page 8 of the Star today. Let's see what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo and other dailies. I don't have the People Daily, but I'll show you the hard copy nonetheless. And this is what is on the front page of Taifa Leo this morning. Uhuru ayaga Moi kuzima wakosoaji. Uhuru ayaga Moi kuzima wakosoaji is a splash. Rais atumia aiga. Oh yeah, I'm being corrected there. I'm trying to see. Uhuru aiga. Kiswahili is escaping me this morning. Uhuru aiga Moi kuzima wakosoaji. And the story continues on page 2. Rais atumia mbinu sawa na za mlezi wake kisiasa kunyamazisha sauti za wanaomkosoa. That is a story that you want to follow on page 2 of Taifa Leo today. Miguna sasa akunja mkia na kurudi Canada. It says here. It's another story there on page 2. Wakili Miguna jana alikunja mkia na kuamua kurudi Canada baada ya kukwama Ujerumani kwa siku 16 kufuatia hatua za serikali kumzuia kurejea nchini. You can follow the story on page 2 of Taifa Leo today. Also, msako polisi wa NASA wahamiaji. That is a standalone picture here on the front page of Taifa Leo. I want to show you what we have on the front page of the People Daily, the hard copy, briefly what is holding. I don't have the soft copy, but this is what is on the front page of the People Daily. It's just the same story that is headlining the front page of the Standard. Police reopen 272 million shillings route of fraud probe. That is what we have as a splash this morning. Detectives summon bank officials, lawyers will handle transaction in which Parastatal lost millions 9 years after Deputy President was acquitted, pointing to fresh wars for embattled countries second in command. And you can follow the story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Also on the news bit there, unanswered questions over Babu Owino Gun is another story that you can follow also on page 5 of the People Daily this morning. Unanswered questions of Babu Owino Gun. That is a story also we shall be discussing with the panelists today as well. We've seen the recent case of Babu Owino and the case of, gun handling in this country as well. Right, let's cross over now. But before we go there, we do have a Business Daily as well. You just need to get a snippet of what is happening in that sector as well. Business Daily. And this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. IMF warns of Kenya's pensions time bomb. Treasury now facing pension obligations that have ballooned to 2.6 trillion shillings, right? Will they push the years ahead now that they're faced with this dilemma? That is another question. The International Monetary Fund has warned of a ticking time bomb in Kenya's pension sector as the gap between retirement dues and actual savings continue to grow wider. Kenya, which in 2009 opted to delay the implosion by raising the retirement age for civil servants from 55 to 60, is now facing pension obligations that have ballooned to 2.6 trillion shillings, about 30% of the GDP. This is much higher than what Kenyans pay as taxes. The country's tax collection aggregate currently stands at 15.6% of the GDP. The cost of settling pensions has risen 600% in the last 15 years, with an estimated 20,000 civil servants projected to retire every year. That is a story that you want to follow on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Okay, another story that you need to follow also is how Treasury gave KQ staff tax-free send-off package. Our Treasury gave KQ staff tax-free send-off package, and we're grappling with this particular tax regime, tax collection in this country. Kenya Airways employees and managers who were declared redundant by the company between 2016 and last year were exempted from paying taxes on their send-off packages as part of a sweetheart deal to ensure that they did not, I should say. This I think is a typo here. They did not challenge their redundancy. The deal also ensured that they took home more money. You can follow the story on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Also, health matters. And we can see a standalone picture here. Health Cabinet Secretary Cecily Kariuki, when she signed the Intergovernmental Participation Agreement for the Universal Health Coverage with Trans Nzoia Governor Patrick Khaemba at Afya House yesterday. Also present during ceremony was Health Principal Secretary Susan Mochache and the newly appointed Chief Administrative Secretary Dr. Mercy Mwangangi. That is a story that you want to follow also inside the Business Daily this morning. Let's see what we have as a sidebar on the ticker there. Civil servants to start paying pension in May. More than 70,000 civil servants will start contributing to their retirement benefits in May, boosting the government's efforts to tame the rising wage bill at a time of depressed revenue collections. Also, today, the digit is 100 billion shillings revenue shortfall tied to job cuts in the first half of 2019-2020, and counties' wages growing threat. Only 5 counties have tamed their wages expenditure. Only 5 counties have tamed their wages expenditure there to within the recommended 35% of total spend. Collectively, they are at 43% hurting development budget. And the story continues on page 12 and 13 of the Business Daily this morning. Vegetable prices double. Prices of vegetables have more than doubled, piling pressure on consumers and the hospitality industry, even as observers say the trend will continue for months. You can follow the story also on page 19 of the Business Daily. Let's cross over to Tanzania and see what we have on the front page of the other dailies in Tanzania. And also, in a moment also, we shall see, I can see the Mwananchi there in Tanzania. And this is what is a splash today. Machungu ya kuzimwa laini za simu. Of course, the deadline was yesterday. Machungu ya kuzimwa laini ya simu, and this is a splash. All people who are not registered with the Communications Authority in Tanzania, then they're suffering or bearing the brunt of this. And this story continues on page 4 of the Mwananchi in Tanzania. I didn't get the Citizen for you, but I can go to Rwanda right now and show you what we have on the front page of the New Times. Real estate players seek government support. 10% of Kigali city's commercial real estate developers are seeking government's intervention to improve their viability of the projects industry players had yesterday. This was revealed during a public lecture organized by the city of Kigali under the theme, The Dynamics of the Commercial Real Estate Market in Kigali. That is a story you can follow inside the New Times as well. In a moment also, I just want to make sure that we have also our daily tonic of our cartoonist as well, so that we can see what our editorial cartoonists have drawn for us as well. Right, so there you have your dailies. Make sure you grab a copy of the Daily Nation and the rest of the dailies as well. And if you've not also looked at the international scene as well, I should show you what we have on the front page of a Time magazine as well, the family business. The unusual power of Jared Kushner. You can follow this story. This is the latest copy of the Time magazine there. I also want to show you what we have on the front page of the East African, if I can just get it quickly for you so that you can see also what is headlining that particular front page of the East African. Where is East African for me? It seems to be eluding me. I'll show you the hard copy as well much later in the course of the program. But for now, Laughter and Levity is up next. This is what has been drawn today in the Daily Nation, and I'll try and show you what we have in the Daily Nation and the Star as well. Let's just begin with what I can see quickly. This is what now Stano has drawn for you today. Lineup, BBI regional captains. Of course, we had a debate here on President Uhuru Kenyatta is particularly intent on him looking for the governors to actually help him steamroll and shake into place the BBI. We have Charity Ngilu, Eastern, Hassan Joho, Coast, Anne Waiguru, Mount Kenya, Wycliffe Oparanya, Western, James Ongwae, Nyanza, Kiratu Murungi, Mount Kenya East, Joseph Olelenku, of course the Ma community, Ali Koran and Northeastern, Alex Tolgos, I should say, Rift Valley. And this is just a list according to, of course, Stano. But of course, this is how it is shaping up as far as the regional blocks are concerned, and them steamrolling the BBI. We, the youth, occupy the biggest region, yet we have been left out. This is what the youth now are saying. And this is what Stano has drawn for us today. I'll try in a moment to just show you also what we have on the front page, or not really the front page, but the editorial cartoon inside the Daily Nation today. And this is what has been drawn by Victor today. And it's all about taming that long tongue there, especially as we're heading towards a general election. I don't know if you can pick up this particular face. Ahmed Hashi.
Very much like me.
Like?
Well, I'm trying to figure out who he looks like. I thought it looked a lot like me who was there, but it's not. Can you put it back on again?
Yes, please. Just put it back.
You can't see it.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh.
Oh, it is Eden. Oh, yeah.
Well, I think that the cartoonists...
You have the Daily Nation with you, yes.
The cartoonists have much more, leeway than analysts. Because, they don't show their face and they don't have any recorded speech. But what they have is the art. So it is very difficult to track down the artist, but it's very easy to track me down. So I think that this is probably from 1984, the book by George Orwell. I think it's a take on it. It's about probably the double speak and the 2-minute scream that is in chapter 2, I think, of that book. And the long tongue that you see there probably describes what is happening in our political circles today as we speak. You were just speaking about the rally in Mombasa, and probably there's a security dimension to that. Because I know, having campaigned all over the country on several occasions, is that the Coast Province is one of the tinderbox places in this country. And when these two groupings go over there, there's probably a mix that is not going to be very good. And I think that our security people ought to be, of course, are aware about all this. And we hope that it's going to be a peaceful meeting, because the two extremes of this political system in this country are going to go and meet there. And we know that there is massive unemployment in the Coast Province and jobless youth. And of course, you know about lots of kids, a couple of kids were shot in Mombasa the other day as well.
We shall discuss about
So
that.
I think they have to be careful about security.
Right. All right. Another editorial cartoon that we have is in the Star today. This is by Ozone. When the bull sees red. And of course, we have most of our panelists who are staff at the University of Nairobi, or maybe they were former students of University of Nairobi. We know what is happening so far. Peter Kagwanja, it's good to see you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
You want to comment on the bull?
No, I just...
That is charging right now.
I just deserve some sitting allowance. I've been sitting here for long.
I second that.
It's been missing in action.
For almost 20 minutes, so I need my sitting allowance. Well, I think with the cartoon, at least it is the debacle at the university.
Yes.
I think it's healthy. You are allowed to be ambitious as long as you do it within the realm of the law. So what is going on in Nairobi University is not as ugly as it is depicted. It's about the minister feeling that he's slighted. The council appointed somebody, and the minister is supposed to appoint one out of the three. Yeah, it's as simple as that. It's not as complicated as it is. And the position of a vice chancellor of one of the most prestigious universities in the region, it cannot be really had on a silver platter. Therefore, there will be some struggle, particularly in a democratic order like ours. Previously, it would not be an issue. In 1990,
but
it would not have been an issue. In 1995, in 1980, it would not have been an issue. It's an issue now because of the order that we have chosen for ourselves, that we live in a democratic order where everybody needs to be heard, and if you are not heard, the law will decide what the right thing is.
But we thought it should be the place where we have the epitome of what? Order, meritocracy, and you really earn your stripes for you actually to be the vice chancellor as well. So why should we have this debacle? And,
I have explained it from the point of view of the order that we live in. It's a democratic order. I said 1980, it could never be heard of. I mean, in 1990, it could never be heard of.
But I struggle to get the point of democracy in an institution that, you know, we have well laid out structures. Yeah? So if we say that we have a laid out structure and we're speaking about democracy, then why should we be having all these structures? You know, even you have your own career path, and you know, this is the steps that should be followed for you to be a VC or something like that.
I think it's become only ugly if you draw in student protests and other things to support. That's only at the level when it becomes ugly. But calling upon the established system of judiciary in the country to arbitrate in a case within an institution or between an institution and another, because this is now a dispute between the university and the ministry about who should. That is pretty in order. I don't think it's really ugly as you are putting it. You have approached the law. But if now the university way is packed with demonstrators doing all manner of things, that would be something else we'd talk about. But as far as it is now concerned, the charging bull and the victim are okay.
The charging bull and the victim are okay?
Yes.
Okay. You know, now Peter Kagwanja is in University of Nairobi. Maybe he is very...
I've not been seen. Nobody knew that he asked me that question.
And of course, he was really sitting on the fence as far as this is concerned.
You're so conspiratorial in your thinking.
We'll come to the professor. Okay, let's go to an alumni of University of Nairobi also, Dr. Hassan Khandenje as well. This development, and of course, compared to where you've been outside the country as well.
Yeah. You know, as a flagship university, you know, frankly speaking, and we all believe in democracy and stuff like that. This is a case of grown-ups and intellectuals behaving badly, and you know, they're behaving very, very badly. It takes away the moral power that we may claim, especially from the academia, to correct government or departments when being dysfunctional or when there is civil war within a certain ministry, and we're trying to streamline them because we're expected they look up to us. Now, so there are two types of wars. There's civil war within the university, and then there's civil war between the university and the government. This does not bode well for the country and actually for the region. Now, I want to believe there are well laid out procedures when it comes to electing a university vice chancellor. Now, if those procedures were followed, then the result should remain. If those procedures were not followed properly, then we should go back to the drawing board and make sure the procedures are followed. We cannot be preaching water and we're drinking wine. And I think it's not boding well. The students, when they see this, that dysfunctional is the order of the day, then that's it's something that we need to avoid. And the University of Nairobi, for those of us who went to the University of Nairobi when everybody was proud to call it that way, we are actually embarrassed, and we're just hoping that this thing ends this week.
Right, let's hear from Amumo as well.
Yes, Dibal, thank you. I think I'll agree with Professor Kagwanja. Our democratic space allows people to seek redress when they feel that maybe procedure has not been duly followed. And these days you find people just going to court and so on. But the University of Nairobi is a parastatal, is a government institution. It falls, there is nothing like government fighting government and so on. It's just, you know, it's a parastatal, it's a government institution.
So from your own assessment, this is not a fight?
No, I think it's just disagreement about procedure and so on by professors who, you know, the administrators and so on. It should not look like something too ugly and so on, but let people do everything with a lot of decency.
All right.
If you feel that your rights have been, you know, violated or procedure has not been duly followed, you just do it in a decent manner and so on.
For your own assessment, also, this is not decent, isn't it?
Well.
Is this the epitome of decency?
I'm trying to be diplomatic. I'm trying to choose words.
Why are you trying to choose words? You just tell it like it is.
No, because you know sometimes it's not in my jurisdiction to make a judgment.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you know, but I think it should not be ugly. It should be a smooth way, a smooth process. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noami Damba. Let me just reserve more Noami Damba because I think he's got a vast experience as far as leading universities is concerned, even from another country. Conflict of interest.
He's a VC himself.
He will come. But let's hear from Ashi. Yeah.
You know, Dibal, there is nothing, and I've seen it close up, as vicious as professors who decide to duel at an academy. It is a very, 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 very vicious game because each one of them may feel slighted, may feel that something has been taken away from them. And academic battles, as all of you know, are not something that people want to see come out into the open. So I think that I don't agree with Mr. Mumo. I respect his view, but I think that this is it's a very ugly incident, and I think that something has to be done about this issue of sending 3 names to the minister or to the chancellor, whoever is supposed to do it. I think that when someone wins something and comes first in an interview, that person should be automatically given the job. Because, you know, the 3 names was given by ministers as a way of politicizing. So they say, put my candidate at number 3. You know, put my candidate number 2. Don't put him on the first. And then when it goes to the minister, then the minister has this imperial power to choose from any of the 3. So I think the board needs to go through the process. The person who does the best job should be immediately appointed right there by the board and a letter sent to the minister or to the chancellor. We ought to end this game of having 3 names being sent to an imperial person who makes an arbitrary decision. When the process that has come out on merit has given someone the first place. Give the first place person the job.
All right. Noami Damba, you've been following the intrigues?
Dibal, I have been. And Several days ago, I just sent congratulatory note to the incoming Vice Chancellor, on which, first of all, I was excited.
Which of the two?
Well, the incoming Vice Chancellor was Gitahi, Professor Gitahi, having been chosen and accepted the responsibility. But my caution was, there is a really need for a steady hand at the helm of the university. And several reasons why I'm saying that. The Ball Universities, as we know it, is over 1,000 years old. From the first one in Morocco, by the way, was founded by a woman.
Yes.
To where we are right now. University is universal. It is global. It is not a village entity. It is not a group interest. And therefore, the kind of things that happened to me when I was chosen as a Vice Chancellor is there was international search on which a Canadian was number 2 in my contest before I was selected. And there were Australians that were candidates, there were Indians that were candidates. So there's several reactions I have at the Ball. One is we need to change the way we select our Vice Chancellor and go global or regional. Select somebody from South Africa to come and run a university in Kenya. There's nothing wrong from West Africa. The first African that headed was University College in Nairobi, was Arthur from Sierra Leone. And he did an excellent job as a founding African head of university. And then he left. And then after that, we just taken our flagship university and make it a village kind of thing, where we circle the same kind of people. These are my colleagues. I have very high regard for them. But when you recycle within, you have the same people who are talking or hate each other, and then you continue this childish kind of behavior.
Right.
And so to get out of it, that's the way. Beside respecting the rule of the law, the CS has a responsibility to play on behalf of the country, and the university constituencies have a complex procedure that need to be respected and followed.
Are you aware Peter Kagwanja is here and he's looking at you, contorting you? And his face, you saying that we need to get someone from South Africa
That's correct.
without Africa to actually, and he's in the same university.
And Peter agree with me.
No, I'm saying this with my tongue family.
On this point, I'm correct. I remember a group of colleagues, and whoever they are, they can hear me, from Muranga, asking me to go and become the chair of Muranga University Council. I said no. Because, you are villagizing yourself. And we have already, and Nairobi University, when we knew it, the scholars were calling Lays.
Yes.
They were, Walter Rodney. Amazing. Mazrui is a Kenyan intellectual. He never taught in any Kenyan university on a tenor thing. He was in Uganda. Wiri Mutungas and others schooled in Dar es Salaam. This was when the university was university. We are not going to build this debate, but we must admit that we have to de-villagize our universities. And we have to get out of this parochial. But the big question is, if we as Kenyans open our jobs at the university level, are Tanzania, Uganda, and others going also to open up their jobs? Because, again, we're talking about the job market. I have my professor and mentor, Professor Tiabe Zeleza at USIU. He taught me undergraduate at Kenyatta. He supervised my PhD work in the University of Illinois at Chicago, and we are now working with him in Nairobi at USIU. This is how universal a university is. So parochializing Nairobi University and recycling the same people and opening the job only for a small clique is what is causing all the things that are beginning to appear as skills at the university. So I agree with you on that.
I agree.
So how does it stand now without a Senate?
No, there are procedures which are laid out. The Senate decides. Normally, if I don't want to use the same word that has been used by Hash, about imperial, we need to dispense with these imperial leadership. First, the vice chancellor, the chancellor of all universities, was the president. We have done away with that. So we have now chancellors of universities chosen from outside, from outside the presidency. At the same time, we need to remove the heavy hand, the iron fist of the ministry from the universities and allow Senate to be what it is, the ultimate body in the land. So if the Senate decides and it's not in your favor, it's your own business.
All right, thank you very much. Unless there is any other lingering comment on this particular matter. Let's see also what the True North is telling us today. What are the highlights of the day as far as the diary is concerned? Gardens Annex, that is First Gong Avenue. That is, of course, the Independent Police Oversight Authority. They will be giving a brief today. Also, the launch of Kenya Harmonized Health Facility Assessment Reports. That will be happening at Laika Regency. That is what we have so far. And of course, we'll get a briefing of this much later also on AM Live Plus. But for now, I want to hark it back to 20 years, way back to 2000, where we retrieved this particular archive, or we retrieved this particular clip from archive, and this is what we call the museum. Just listen in.
The president, who was officially opening the Castle Brewing Kenya Limited plant in Thika, said in his off-the-cuff speech that he would like to leave a united nation when he retires.
Viongozi wakitaka kuongoza nchi hii wawe na watu wakae na amani wenyewe, wawe na amani wenyewe mbele ya kuitisha uongozi. Kama unataka msijana apembeleza, hapana kwenda kwa vita. Kama unataka kuongoza, utawezaje kupata watu wa kuamini? Kama wewe hapana pembeleza polepole, ujulikane wewe ndio mtu wa amani. Sisi tumekula yetu, tunataka wengine wale kwa amani.
He announced that South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt and Kenya had reached an understanding to increase trade opportunities between the four countries.
Ningetaka wananchi wa Kenya hasa muende mbele kwa umoja wenu. Sina haja na makombano haya yote. Kitu kikubwa ni tuwe umoja ili tufanya sisi kuwe na uhuru.
The president, who was taken on a guided tour of the brewery, denied having denounced the Chris Okemo team which led negotiations with the IMF team in Nairobi.
And I want the press to be more responsible. The nation stooped so low to lie by saying, I condemned my minister Okemo yesterday. Everybody was there. I didn't condemn anybody. Because of my successful visit to America and Europe, the nation is not happy.
The president, who was in high spirits, said he was committed to seeing a thriving private sector in the country.
Ahmed Hashi can remember that particular statement by President Moi there, way back in 2000, Hashi?
I was quite young then. How time flies. The point that I want to say is that the great Winston Churchill once said that I no longer take what people say, but look at how they act. So I use that mantra in a cheeky way, but because our president deserves our respect. He's an old man now and he's not feeling well. And you can always have a debate when someone is vigorous, but when he cannot reply back, you should never say anything bad about them. So we really hope that the president, former president here is not well. And the only thing we could do is say that he gets better, and we hope he gets better. He's quite old now. He's over 90 years old. But on a political point, you know that President Daniel Arap Moi was probably, you know, if there is a man in this country that left power peacefully and went home, I think that's the one credit that President Moi has. And you know that other leaders in Africa have been pushed and sent countries into civil war. So we ought to allow this one thing for President Moi, that when the push came to shove, it was time for him to go, he went to his farm.
He went to his farm.
Yeah.
All right. It seems also the media was being condemned way back in 2000. Dr. Hassan Khaninje?
Yeah, media has a responsibility to speak truth to power, but also to hold those in power accountable. However, at the same time, media should always be aware that they should do that in a way that does not hurt the national interest of a country. Now, we know in 2000 it was a very trying time for Kenya economically. You know, the structural adjustment programs that were imposed on us had taken its toll. Lots of loans had disappeared because of what they perceived lack of progress. And I think he was complaining because of what he thought was a successful tour of Europe and America, only to come back home to very bad news. And of course, then that bad news, because the rest of the world reset. Now, but I think another important thing that Mzee said that perhaps can speak to the current situation is how, if we want to get power, and especially to politicians, we should be able to talk to Kenyans nicely. What we've been seeing is politicians just thumping and literally trying to incite Kenyans actually into following them. And for even those who are interested in, let's say, 2022 political positions, you'll have no country to rule or no county to run if the country is not peaceful, if we cannot move forth as a united country. And I think his wisdom still holds true today.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kagwanja, you want to gloss over that?
Yes,
But just remembering
I'm waiting.
the energy.
I'm waiting to read the biography of Mzee Moi. I agree with Hashi. This is the wrong time to discuss Mzee in harsh tones. Because whatever you want to say of Mzee, he held the country for 24 years. How he did, you can have your judgment, but he did. Others of his contemporaries didn't, and other countries fell apart. That's the truth. And therefore, he left a country upon which Mwai Kibaki built, and Uhuru is building, and he himself has lived to see progress built on what he left. That's what we call legacy. And therefore, if you want to summarize it, you would say Mzee Moi had a good legacy. He also had humor in his own way. Listen to that issue of how do you deal with the intergender relations. You don't use force. You know, you use soft power, not hard power. And therefore, you cannot build the country on hard power. Possibly you have to go beyond even soft power and use smart power. And I think that's how Jeddah came into this in his debate. For the nation and the media, I think this is going to be a perennial debate because the line is blurred between when you are speaking to power and you are undermining power. That line is very, very blurred. And I think it's incumbent upon the media to watch that line. And I listened to Hilary Ngweno speaking to us as young people in Gilgil in the National Service training. And he spoke to that very, very eloquently, that there are things which even you know they are truth, you don't speak them to power. You consult power before you speak and ask, is it in our interest that you in power are doing this? Or do you want me to put it in print? Or do you want to stop it? Negotiations behind the curtain, because the men in power are Kenyans, the men heading the media are Kenyans, and Kenya is our mother.
All right, Momo.
Yeah, very important. And I picked a very important thing that we're probably missing that President Moi is saying here. And the time has come, and and politicians must follow through. You can never campaign or get your political agenda through force. He's saying if you want something, if you want a lady, you've got to, you know, and he's putting it so. The politicians in this country will behave like, I don't know if you've seen some boys out there selling wares like socks, you know, today I'm selling this, you know. You're selling yourself. You're not imposing yourself on people. And people and politicians in this country must take that heed, you know, very seriously, that you are like a salesperson. You're simply saying, I have this policy alternative. If you give me the chance to lead you, I will do this. And that is what President Moi is saying. You really have got to humble yourself as a leader. And that is very important. The other one that is touching on media, there is a thin line between order and liberty. And for you to enjoy your liberty, you need some degree of order and vice versa. And therefore, we cannot ruin our country, destroy our country in the name of just for me, what I do and so on. Look at the bigger picture. So let us always be guided by statements that are balanced and actions that are, you know, guided by purposive compromise each time for our country.
Thank you. Yeah. Lastly, Nomi Damba.
Dubal, I had the opportunity to serve with President Moi when I was a little kid as a member of the Kenyan National Freedom from Hunger campaign, and I sat very close to him, and I also listened to him. I think President Moi, somebody will write his true biography that will reflect a man who had passion and deep interest in the national, in Kenya. So in the outward, he was a person that people admire and also misunderstood at the same time. And most of what reflect what Moi did are the people who surrounded him. The president does not act alone. He represents presidency. So the people who surround him, who perceive that Moi think some different, acted that way, and eventually portray the picture of Moi that we all read about. But if you look at the people who surrounded Kennedy, they were very smart people. Yeah. And they made Kennedy look smart. Barack Obama is smart by himself and also surrounded by the right people. So someone is going to write a true biography of President Moi that will set the truth for Kenya to read for years to come.
All right, thank
That's
you.
where I'm coming.
All right, we want to drill deeper to our discussion this morning, and here are the highlights. All right, I'm on camera 7. Thank you, Zike. So here is our highlights on what we shall be discussing this morning. Apology of poverty driving youth terrorists. Also, we go back to Mombasa and look on some of the resolutions from the Security Conference. And world powers pledge to refrain from interference in Libya's war. All right, of course, you've seen our guests, so we want just also to play some of the guest profiles that we have this morning for them.
You have to do it. Consensus.
All right, let's just get the highlights of what was happening also in Mombasa, then we can take it from there with our panelists.
We in the security sector are present, we are prepared, and we are ready to deliver on the work that you have given us.
Smuggling and contraband from neighboring countries directly funds Al-Shabaab, which on the other side of the border illegally levies taxes that they then use to sustain their operations. Friends, this must stop. Ile story ati ukifanya makosa hapa ati unakuwa transferred pale, hiyo hakuna. Ikiwa ni makosa, jameni jitayarishe kwenda nyumbani. I think that is fair. Au mnasemaje wenzangu? See, that is fair. Yes? We will not be transforming incompetence. We will not be transferring corruption from one region to another.
And we want to just get headlining thoughts from our panelists before we take a short break on that particular conference in Mombasa, and then we'll delve deeper on the other side of the break on matters also that we've raised. That is also the ideology that is driving the youth to terrorism, or also is it poverty? And also look at the Libya peace talks as well. Let's just begin with you, Ahmed Hashi. I can see you're straightening out the leash to say something.
No, I'm actually outrunning the leash. The principle of the matter is the president is right. Right here in Wajir and in the frontline counties, you know, Al-Shabaab's presence has now increased a little bit dramatically in the last few months, and there was a conference in Garissa over this. And it's quite shocking to hear leaders say that, that the solution to the problem of Al-Shabaab in the frontline counties is to arm the citizens of those counties. I think that it would be bedlam. You would be bringing insecurity and increasing it to, you know, even higher heights. So I don't think that's a policy option, and people should not say you should arm citizens there. It's terrible. But I think that President is right, is that if we follow the money of Al-Shabaab, where they're getting this money,
yes,
and if we follow their leaders, and if we have our armies behind them, we will fight with Al-Shabaab to the end, because there's no negotiating with these thugs. There's no talking to them, because these guys don't, what they want is not something that can be given to them. So at the end of the day, Debal, is we ought to be very careful about what we tell the residents of northern Kenya, especially when the leaders congregate somewhere and tell them that this is the way it is. It's not responsible to tell the people of this country that we arm citizens. These citizens pay taxes. The responsibility of the state is there to take care of them. And another thing is that our security forces have many garrisons in Wajir, Garissa, and Mandera. Something's not working. Well, you see, before it was really bad, and then the new director, head of the intelligence, I can say, has done a wonderful job. The guy who's here now, who's sitting. And the police have done a wonderful job, and the army have done a wonderful job. But in the last few weeks, there's been a sense that there's a bit of the insecurity has increased, and that's why they had that conference in Garissa. And I think we ought to continue doing the hearts and minds, continue fighting Al-Shabaab by making the residents, the ears, the eyes, the nose, and the sixth sense of the people there, so that they can
delve deep on the other side of the break. Let's hear from Peter Kagwanja.
Yeah, first and foremost, we must always look at the problem of Al-Shabaab in its regional sense. Because if you localize it, you might be coming with Kenyan solutions that may not even work. Al-Shabaab is a regional threat. And one thing is clear. From the beginning of 2018, Al-Shabaab has been on the resurgence. Somehow before that time, it was put down. And therefore, we must explore the reasons within Somalia that have brought the resurgence of Al-Shabaab. Kenyans are, compared to what the Somali people are suffering in Mogadishu, in Kismayu, everywhere. I mean, the Kenyan story is simply this small. Yet, the Somali people are our people. They are hit every day. 400 people dying, 500 people dying in one attack. another 100 dying in another attack. I have lost in last year alone, I lost two major friends that have had built over time. And I can sympathize with Mohammed and others who lost their fathers and they are abroad. They have not even, what I was imagining from the Garissa meeting is failure to take responsibility and failure to be patriotic. Yes. Somebody in a position of responsibility saying, we don't want to report what Al-Shabaab is doing because they will take retributive action against us. What kind of a Kenyan are you if you cannot stand up against a bully? And you are afraid to report because they are coming, they will come and beat or kill your family. I mean, we have to pay the price for our liberty. And Al-Shabaab is encroaching on our liberty. So as a Kenyan, a Kikuyu, a Ru, a Somali, wherever you are as a Kenyan, you have a responsibility to defend Kenya. Come out, speak.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hassan Kanenje, we shall dwell deep on the other side. Also, let's hear from you briefly on that, on the outcome of that security conference.
I agree, with Prof. All of us have a responsibility to protect and defend the country, and security is not an exclusive preserve of the active security personnel. It's actually for all of us. Now, I think another item that is going to be important, and in the fight against, arming citizens has never been a solution. I think every Pashtun person in Afghanistan probably has a gun. And terrorism hasn't ended. So that won't be a solution, or the collapsed state of Iraq. But training or teaching the communities in a way they can be more actively involved, but then also for those of us, or rather for those citizens who elect, for instance, in terms of, let's say, giving information, because when you're going to give information, let's say, to government agency, you don't want your cover to be blown up. If it's blown out, what's going to happen is you're going to become a target. And some of these people, because especially those of us who are involved in PCVE, so to speak, you're going to find that some people work in very vulnerable areas and very high-risk areas. And therefore, they have to strike a balance between, for instance, sharing certain information and their own safety. Number two, there have been incidents, and I think this is where we need also to train our security personnel, where someone goes to report a crime, but then instead that's the person who's going to get arrested, to give evidence. Yeah. So that scares a lot of citizens actually from volunteering to give information. Okay. Yeah. So we need to change that approach and make citizens, first of all, be willing to actually work with security services in fighting terror.
Let's just take that station break. Then when we circle back also, we shall continue with you, Professor Noami Damba and Dr. Mumu Nzao. And also remember to hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is a Twitter handle. AM Live NTV, our profile name on Facebook, and 2068 is our SMS portal as well. So we shall be looking at what is happening as far as the resurgence of Al-Shabaab is concerned and what is really instigating this resurgence as well. Don't go away.
Kupika kila mtu ajipikie yake. Na vyombo za nani? Kwa nani?
Am I not getting some?
Ice cream ya wageni. Wewe nitakuletea maji kwa jikoni.
A girl's gotta eat to keep up with you, Mr. Guns.
Well, that's absolutely correct.
This festive season, get a decoder with subscription at an unbelievable festive offer of only 1,499 shillings. You can also pay 1 month and enjoy 2 weeks free on a higher bouquet. For more information, call 0719 077 077.
Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
This week on Lit 360.
Wine your body, wine your body. Nipe vibe, legeza kiuno. Wine your body.
Miujiza.
Anajifanya siku hizi.
Kimbia mara moja. Naogopa Mwenyezi Mungu na uji moto peke yake. Hiyo si bangi.
Every day, NTV News Team moves you to the center of the action.
The security forces who took part in this operation.
Police are not taking anything to chance.
Moves you to the heart of the story to witness and record history.
Rendering the declared results null and void.
Telling the story of Kenya
The growing importance of border in Mandera.
Matatus will be on strike.
and beyond.
The politics in the United States capital. It is the 7th edition of the Global Education taking place in Dubai.
When it comes to business, we crunch the numbers and unpack the detail with the latest information for your investment decision.
It's time to say goodbye to this note and karibu to this note.
In order for the manufacturing sector to be elevated from the ground.
Despite the government's promise to create at least 1.3 million jobs,
moves you fast past the planes and trucks to bring you the triumphs and joys of our great men and women.
Moving stories that touch our hearts.
I didn't know that I could go back to school.
The Back to School program has brought hope to these young mothers.
NTV News. News that moves you.
Welcome back. You're watching Standing on Guard, where we keep an eye on the enemy, and we continue with the conversation with our panelists here. We're trying to see some of the resolutions that came up during the Mombasa Security Forum, or the conference that you saw there. We had President Uhuru Kenyatta presiding over it as well, and we want to just also look broadly at what is happening as far as the resurgence of Al-Shabaab is concerned as well. We saw, yes, also some youthful faces were arrested last week who were attempting or trying to conspire to, carry out a terrorist attack in the country. But thanks to, of course, the watchful eye of the police, this was contained. So we continue with the conversation at pace. Remember also to talk to us on social media as well, and we shall be relaying that on the air as well with you. And we shall also try to get also on the phone line to get your views as well. So let's hear. We promise that when we circle back, we shall hear from Dr. Mumanzao.
Yeah, first, I would like to correct the impression that our security machinery is not, is sort of on the receiving end or something like that, or that Al-Shabaab is sort of making a resurgence. Having studied, extremist groups and terror groups for a long time, and as a security expert on matters of terrorism, what happens is what we call a spin-off effect. When a body like Al-Shabaab, for example, what you call ISIS, Dawla al-Islamiyya fi al-Iraq wa al-Sham, or even Jaish al-Islam, or Harar al-Sham, all these groups, when they are crumbling, they start, it's like what you call the kicks of a dying horse. They start to try to create to make a comeback through some kind of a media attention. Like you see what they did at Manda. All they wanted was just to, throw a projectile and cause this big, thing and create some kind of a CNN moment. And you know what that does? It helps people who have interest in such groups to now, because they look for funds. And therefore, it is not really a resurgence, but what you call a spin-off effect of a group which is, trying to scatter and then try and build cells in other places and this kind of thing. But what is important is that the war against terrorism, and it's not just terrorism, but violent extremism, is won through intelligence. And Kenya's intelligence machinery, most respected around the world, in fact, involved in training all over the world and this kind of thing. And the head of state himself said a lot of confidence in this. And what happens is that, look at what is happening in Lake Chad Basin. you know, look at what is happening in Mogadishu. Look at in places like, you know, in Syria and all these places. All these attacks are happening, but comparatively, and that's what Professor was saying, what we are having is just that, you know, what happens is that when you have one attack, it really screams out, but you are never told just so many other hundreds that have been thwarted.
Okay.
And therefore, this is an intelligence-led work, and as Kenyans, we must always support and so on. And what Hash was saying is this: we must continue with our preventive violent extremism programs in the communities. Now, there's something we call conditions of sufficiency and necessity, Debal. There is nothing wrong with arming, for example, the chief to have a little bit of, you know, security, like they were saying, he will be given a little bit of that, but not for the whole citizenry. Is it necessary? Yes, to have, for example, the security machinery to be revamped and to be, you know, that what you call defensive capacity. But for the citizens, it's all about building community resilience. And leaders in our regions, our counties have got to up their game and not get into any kind of, you know, factionalism or you know, petty politics.
Thank you.
And make our people to be strengthened so that they can speak out.
Right, thank you.
And you know, Shabab tells us that how we love life is how they love death. But no, how we love life, we love life the same way they love death, and they don't give life, it is Allah subhanahu.
All right, thank you very much. Let's hear from Professor Naomi Damba.
Dubal, let me begin by repeating the same question that our general, who's a member of our panel, raised last time.
I can't hear you clearly. Let me just try and see what's happening with the microphone. Continue. My microphone will pick. Continue.
Okay.
Just continue.
The question is, why does this not
This is a big wallet. You know, I thought this is my microphone. Where's my receiver?
Don't change the wallet.
Do you have it now?
You have it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Get it.
Just continue now.
The question,
I think it's off.
The question is, why does this not
Thank
happen
you.
in Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda? Because they face the same kind of situation. That's where we need to go. And while I agree with Mumo that we have made significant progress since the first major attack on Kenya soil, we must understand the enemy. The enemy is shifting every minute. The Israelis gather 6 million bits of information per day and act on certain information. And this does not happen in Israel.
Thank you.
There are three things, Dubal, if you give me a minute.
Right, let me just interrupt you before you go to the three things. Hold on to your thoughts, because I think I have an issue with your mic, then I'll sort it out. In the meantime, we can be hearing from Peter Kagwanja. Right, briefly.
Well, I think Mumo is becoming very abstractive and very for a small mind, sometimes you don't get that. The point is, yes, there are ups and downs in terms of the fight against, and you are at war. Agree that you are at war. Kenya is at war. Something that we don't say in the media as we're doing. We have been on a 10-year war. 10 years when our boys and girls, men and women are in harm's way in Somalia. And Kenya is part of a larger territory where Al-Shabaab can use culture, can use history, can use ethnicity, can use cronyism, and can use all these forms of identity to mobilize. And that territory moves all the way from Ethiopia, Jijiga, those sides up, and comes all the way up to Tana River and beyond. And now it's at the heart of our city. Therefore, we must understand that the territory within which Al-Shabaab can mobilize is expanding. It's not declining. The Somali people, both of Kenyan origin and of the the Horn origin, because the Somali people are in the Horn, are now at the Namanga. You go to Kajiado, and the third largest community, you'll be told, would be the Somali. Now, what does that tell you? That Al-Shabaab can use networks within that. Now, one of the studies with the European Union that we did, and thanks to Professor Ganeji as well, showed that the Al-Shabaab is at the heart of Mount Kenya region. It is in Nyeri. It is in Laikipia. It is in Meru in a big way. Why? Because they are identities that it can tap into and mobilize. So when we say that Al-Shabaab is on the resurgence, we are saying that let's look at the factors that it is exploiting, the forces that are giving it new impetus to rise, and what our security forces and what our communities need to do in order to counter the same. Al-Shabaab rarely attack villages of ordinary people. They attack people where they're going to get what Mumo is calling the CNN effect, usually where they are foreigners. That's why it is important to attack the American base in Manda. It is important to attack the American base in Somalia itself. It's important to attack, Dusit, and not in every other hotel. Oh, many hotels here are vulnerable, but that's not where they're interested in, because that's not going to give them the international appeal and reputation. Al-Shabaab is on the resurgence. The government, it has changed tactics. In summary, we met in Zanzibar last year, and one of the lessons that came from that meeting on Al-Shabaab was that Al-Shabaab has become versatile. Because it is under attack, it has decided to be a political movement. Therefore, it is taking over Somalia from a political perspective, not military perspective. They form political parties, they enter parliament, and they enter government. Today, it's very difficult to draw a clear line between the Somali intelligence and Al-Shabaab. Very, very difficult. And even anybody in Somalia will tell you that. Solution is, as we deal with Al-Shabaab, let us deal with it as a regional threat, not as a Kenyan threat. And the moment countries in the region, Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, Eritrea, and others cannot work in a concerted way, it's impossible for Kenya to defeat Al-Shabaab alone.
But the probing question we should be asking ourselves is, why are we bearing the brunt of it all? Even when we look at the region itself, it seems they are particularly intent on, attacking Kenya. Yeah, with all these attacks, the spate of attacks we've seen so far. Statistics
don't show that. Go to the Somali region of Ethiopia and look at the people have over 2.4 million.
Save for Somalia. Yeah. Which other regions?
No, I'm talking about the Somali region in Ethiopia. Ogaden. Okay. No, it is not only the fight within the Ogaden, but between Oromia and Ogaden. Look at the number of people displaced. We've not talked about those numbers. 2.4, nationally 3.5 million people displaced in Ethiopia in the last 1 year. So it's that we are ignorant. We are not studying. So let's not compare, hot dogs and dogs. One is a quick snack. The other one is a very dangerous canine.
All right, let's hear from Kagwanja. Yeah, not Kagwanja, Hassan Khanenje.
Professor,
you will come to you, Professor. Just hold on to your thoughts.
I actually agree with much of what Professor has said. We're having a serious problem at our hand. Now, Kenya is also in a unique position, and I think Professor spoke to what elements or aspects of Kenya that Al-Shabaab can exploit that may be missing from some countries in the region, not all of them, such as culture, history, proximity, language, religion, and the like. And if there are two countries that seem to be historically, culturally, economically connected in the umbilical cord, is actually Kenya and Somalia. You almost can't separate them. Yeah. That's a very unique relationship, that Al-Shabaab can actually exploit and is still exploiting. Now, number two, Somalia suffers way more from Al-Shabaab attacks than actually Kenya does. Yeah. I think that is obvious. And there is evidence of a lot of activity going on in Ethiopia now. The trouble is, for a long time, is Ethiopia has also been a largely, a police-closed society, and a lot of information doesn't come out, and because we don't make enough effort sometimes to learn about them, we actually think the tree didn't fall in the forest when it actually did. No, the tree has been falling in the forest. Al-Shabaab, has remained active. So we can't exactly compare, but we are we have certain very unique characteristics that actually makes us even more vulnerable. Now, that does not mean that other countries are not doing some things that we can learn from. Of course, we need to find out what are other things they're doing. Now, the final point is part of the challenge for this actually, I think contributing to this resurgence is also what is happening in Somalia itself. And there's been an attempt by Al-Shabaab to mainstream itself. Yeah. And so how do you mainstream yourself? Is you put yourself in processes that can actually give you some form of, say, legitimacy and access. And because also of the increasing tensions and lack of collaboration within the region because of the disputes that are existing, and then the entry of regional and external forces internally within Somalia, it has complicated the issue, and then Al-Shabaab exploiting that vacuum politically to actually make inroads to the extent that they've infiltrated the government, they've infiltrated the intelligence, and including certain attacks to certain Somalia's own government installations. They would say, you know, someone from the inside must have given this information. Yes. Why? Because it's someone from the inside who is doing that. Yeah. And so this is a regional problem that has global implications that we actually have to approach it. It is not exactly declining in that sense. In terms of controlling territory, especially cities,
thank you,
we were able to push them out. However, in the hinterland, they actually still have a lot of sway.
Thank you. Ahmed Hashi?
There's a concept in political science called fin de cycle. I mean, when the cycle of a long duration or a period begins and ends, and I think that Al-Shabaab's days are numbered. And the reason I believe that Al-Shabaab's days are numbered is because I understand the Somali psyche quite well. And you know, the Somali people have been a very anti-imperial, very anti-colonial people. They have a self-conception of them as a very proud race, and the first country in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, to be bombed by the British in 1917 or 1918, I think. And the sense and sensibility of the Somali people is that they don't have a state, and they feel that the rest of the region has ganged up on them. They have troops in there, and they want to dismember their country. Professor Makau Mutua didn't help as much by writing an article of saying that we should just get rid of the state, the Somali state as it were. Of course, we as Africanists, we should disagree with them. But at the heart and at the core of Al-Shabaab is a sense of our country and our people, our culture, our way of life and our religion is being overrun. And I think that discourse that they put there is false, because I think Al-Shabaab is like the group that was run by Al Capone. I mean, it's money racketeering, it takes bribes, it participates in all kinds of evil stuff. So I think that this is just an ideology to try and cover what in a really sense term is a group of thugs who have formed a racketeering group. And at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of this region to know one thing, and one thing only. If we do not participate in a very forceful way with the international community to put a state into that country, we will continue to suffer these attacks. We will continue to have these problems. And if any state in this region or in the world thinks that they have a vested interest into keeping Somalia the way it is, sooner or later, and sooner rather than later, that heat, in American terminology, the heat is going to visit them. And we don't want Shabab and other groups to morph into something that's completely different. You know, Puntland and Somaliland don't get attacks very rarely. And the reason is because the people have said, you're not going to come in here. If you get into a restaurant, if you get into a shop, if you walk down the street in Hargeisa or in Bosaso, more so in Somaliland, they will know. They'll know who is this person and where they're coming from. So the people have a stake in defending their place. And once the people's hearts and minds have been won and they have a stake in defending where they have, Al-Shabaab will disappear, because Al-Shabaab, the ball comes from families. They have fathers, they have mothers, they have children, they have homesteads, they have neighborhoods, they have cousins and they have brothers. And I think once the public says no, We have had enough, and that's where it's coming to in Mogadishu. And let me tell you why. Because when you start killing, the stupid policy of killing 80, 90 people to shock the country has actually another effect, a morally repugnant effect of the human being, because the Somalis are moral human beings as well. So I think that the political road to build a state in Somalia, unless that happens, well, all bets are off.
Right, thank you. Let's hear from Naomi Damba before we come to Mumunzao, then we gravitate to other discussions.
Edibal, while I largely agree with what my colleagues here are saying, I need to focus on three focus. I've spent a lot of years studying and understanding intelligence. There are three things. Number one is the last point that as he's talking about. Kenyan must feel that this country belongs to us. And everything that is happening in it, it affects you one way or another, so long as it doesn't matter where it happened, whether it's in Mombasa, Garissa, wherever, it is Kenya. And therefore, in intelligent network, the most important solid evidence is human intelligence. When you see something, say something. Don't just say, I'm not affected, or they're going to impact me, or anything else. Because if you hesitate, these people will not hesitate to kill. Secondly, we must take a look at our intelligent gathering, intelligent reporting, and actionable item as in our past and currently. There was a situation during colonial days, the ball, where the chief knew everything that was happening in the village. He knew how many chicken you have, how many goats, and how many cows. And if they want to do a hard tax, they know exactly how much you need to pay for tax. That knowledge is not known anymore. And therefore, young people are taken out to those villages and they disappear for years. People don't know where they are. And they turn out around to be trained, armed, and ready to kill Kenya. And therefore, we need to go back to that, understanding fundamental of intelligent gathering and intelligent use. Lastly, Debal, we have set up forces all over, quick reaction force here and there, but we need to be very serious about the core force that deal with nothing but these thugs. So such that we can arrive at any point, any place, 24 hours, and take them out whenever there is actionable item. Okay, we need to do that. I want to get back to Kagwanja's point. This fight cannot be a national fight. This fight cannot be a regional fight. It's a global fight. And therefore, we need all our friends around the world. We need to use their information. We need to work with them. But Kenyan must commit everything to get rid of these people once and for all.
Right. Finally, Mumo Nzao, then we go to the Libya crisis.
Yeah, Dibal, I know, sometimes you have to come down to the language that citizens can hear, that because you know what Al-Shabaab and these groups do, they use narratives. And narratives like who is bad, who is good, and those kinds of things. Now, there's a group, this one you call Boko Haram, they are now out of the studies that there are groups in places in northern Nigeria where the communities, like Hash is saying, simply refused. They have opened up to information. They're giving the police, the agencies, the community leaders. And now, Jamatu Halis Lidawat wal Jihad, what you call Boko Haram, has moved now into places like, Chad, Cote d'Ivoire, and so on, to the north, Ivory Coast, and that's where they're doing a lot of atrocities. And the best way is to strengthen our communities. And that's why I'm attacking some of the propaganda they use. Do you know sometimes, even now when we are talking here, Al-Shabaab resurgence and so on, they tend to feel like we are giving them airtime. We are talking about them and so on. So you need sometimes to really degrade, you know, their very sense and what them, because if you attack it that way, and this is where sheikhs, community leaders, religious leaders come in, because they try to separate people on things like, you know, religious lines and such things.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying, they say that, you know, we love death the way you love life. But you say we love life just the same way you love death. It's the same way. Yeah.
I agree with what Mumu is saying, but let's be careful about denialism. Denialism. In other words, denying what you can say. We just had a conversation here with Professor Kanenje, and the point is this: we have lost 47 sheikhs who work, who oppose this kind of thing in a very slow, low-intensity warfare by Al-Shabaab, attrition on our people, community. Now, we have had attacks from January last year. If you look at the chart up and down, before January 2019, we had not had any attack all the way up to 2014. So it is from January 2019 that we have begun to get these attacks, if you look at the chart.
Correct.
In Somalia, before 2018, January there or thereabout, there were very few attacks, and they would take a toll of maybe 2, 3, 4 people. Then all of a sudden, by July, we are talking about 700 people killed in a day in one explosion, including killing the mayor of Mogadishu, the governor of Mogadishu, the governor in his office. Yiriso. That is really, you cannot deny that there is a resurgence of Al-Shabaab. And the big question is, why is this disease called Al-Shabaab coming back? It's a disease. And we must accept that this disease needs to be dealt with. Is the dose that we are taking not sufficient to deal with this disease? That's all we are saying.
Thank you. So let's leave it at that. And we gravitate the discussion to other issues right now. We want to see what really happened on Sunday, where world leaders committed to ending all meddling in Libya's war and to uphold a weapons embargo at Berlin summit as part of a broader plan to end the spiraling conflict. I'll just run you about the pictures as well as we're continuing this story. The president of Russia, Turkey and France were among global chiefs signing up to the plan to stop interfering in the war. But the war, I should say, through weapons, troops, or financing. But the talks failed to deliver serious dialogue between the warring parties' strongman Khalifa Haftar and the head of Tripoli's UN-recognized government, Fayez al-Sarraj, or to get both sides to sign up to a permanent truce. And this was the conference they were deliberating on. Let's just try and listening. And I know some of the languages. I don't know if you have a bite on it, CK?
The question is related to the investment authority, to the national company.
And I'll just give you that bite by Guterres, the UN Secretary General, who spoke very movingly on what sort of, a dialogue they had and what resolution they came up with as far as that particular conference is concerned. Let's just begin with Ahmed Ashi on Libya crisis. Is this the ultimate solution so far? Because I can see also Chancellor Angela Merkel saying that the military, the hard power is off the table right now. That's not the solution now to deal with Libya.
Debal, the architectonics of diplomacy that should have been led, or the AU should have been a central player in this place. I saw the head of the AU from Chad, and for some strange reason, the president of Congo-Brazzaville, Sassou Nguesso. So the Europeans handpicked some few token Africans to come to this place. but the real decision was being made by the Western powers who had interest in Libya, and about for the failure of the African Union to keep this agenda and to make sure that it's the lead on it in any international conference, because Libya is not in the Alps. Libya is, it's in North Africa. And so that's one point that needs to be pointed out, that there's a failure on the part of the leadership of the AU. The second thing is I didn't see any leaders from the Maghreb. Libya is part of the Maghreb. These are Moors and Berbers, very old Africans, and I didn't see any of the participants from the Maghreb who have this direct impact on the issue of Libya at that conference. So the third issue is that the powers that are there, of course, Libya is one of the largest oil-producing countries in the world, and it's just right. Western Europe is Italy and all the other countries are. When you're in Libya, you could see Europe. So there's a strategic also interest for the Europeans to deal with this issue. And I think that at the end of the day, that it is the West that caused the overthrow of, it's the people who overthrew Gaddafi. But at the end of the day, the intervention by Western powers in Libya has made this issue into a conundrum. Last point, Debal, is, and I know the panel will agree with this. I think that on issues of intervention, when it comes to real politics and the resources that's needed to do something in Libya, of course there's going to be participation from Western and American powers. And but at the end of the day, it is really, really important for our institution, our continental institution, to have the je ne sais quoi, the spirit of trying to be at the forefront of diplomatic solutions for African problems on this continent. It's embarrassing, that we have Turks and Germans and all these people going to deal with an issue that is particularly African. And I think that that is an understatement as to the affairs with the African Union today.
But we should actually try and see what was the motive for this particular conference in the first place, because they're saying they're pledging, to stop the interference in Libya, right? That's why they're holding this particular conference, and this is in quotes: stop the interference.
Those are the questions that the AU need to bring to the table: the exploitation of oil, the reconstruction of Libya, the money that
these are the things you want to bring to the fore right now. Yes,
so,
Dr. Hassan Ninja.
I'd like to make a correction. The Libyans did not overthrow Gaddafi. The West overthrew Gaddafi. He had even accepted to actually have elections. And I can tell you one thing: do you think any of these warlords would have won? I highly doubt it. Any country are always going to have people going to oppose it. But when you use that as an opportunity to overthrow government, that is what creates chaos. So they created this problem. They need to find a way of fixing it. Now, number two, Sassou Nguesso being in Berlin is because he heads the AU high-level committee. Okay. That, the next talks are actually supposed to come back to Africa, to Congo, something we've been advocating that the AU should be given more role, because this is something AU was denied last minute. They attempted to actually bring about some form of negotiation before the war broke out in Libya. Now, just pledging alone is not sufficient. And unless you have a United Nations Security Council actually making certain resolutions that someone can act on and can be enforced, the countries with interests in, unfortunately, in Libya, they're so powerful that it's going to take a lot of discussions and a lot of deliberate effort to do that. Now, General Haftar, he has his military not too far away from Tripoli. He's going to need a lot of incentive to actually put down those weapons. Ankara is determined to make sure that the international or the UN recognized government in Tripoli stays, and they are literally willing to deploy troops to do that. So unless we actually find a way of disentangling this, but then bring other big powers on board to do that, including the regional powers, the regional players, including Russia, where the talks failed, Egypt, UAE, Turkey, and others, and France, that was part of the architects of removing Gaddafi, is going to be increasingly difficult to actually do this. So Angela Merkel can have the goodwill and does not like to interfere the kind of wars and interventions. However, she has very little leverage unless she brings other Western powers and Russia and Middle Eastern powers, especially some Gulf countries, on board.
Thank you. Peter Kagwanja.
3 points. First, it is our own Ali Mazrui and others who in 2001 wrote voluminously about Africa's recolonization. And all the props and drama you are seeing in this is basically about the Berlin Conference. It's like it never took place in 1884. Now we have to have Berlin, Paris, and other conferences on Africa when we are capable of dealing with our own issues. So I think that's the point to begin to look at. And speaking truth to power, I think the Europeans need to get out of Africa. The West need to get out of Africa. Please get out of Africa. Let's do our own thing. Second is that in getting out of Africa, I think we need to get the AU having a firm hand on our conflicts, irrespective of what is going to cost us. Why? Because if the Africans were firm in 2011 and pursued, and I sat in that meeting at the AU, 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m., we're still debating on what to do with Libya. And I knew, and the resolution that was issued at that time, Gaddafi agreed, and I'm saying what she has just said. Gaddafi agreed that I now want the African Union to help democratize, and I'm going personally to live in 3 years. He admitted, and it is in writing. But despite that, the West wanted to humiliate Gaddafi, take a order. The only thing they wanted to do is so-called destroy and rebuild. That strategy is what has destroyed the world. That
so they can't rebuild right now.
Destroy and rebuild. But then Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, and all the other terrorist groups, anybody who wanted to recruit, went to Libya. So how can you deal with it? So they themselves are beginning to become victims. How many ambassadors are we losing in that country? In Libya, Western ambassadors in Tripoli. Third, we need to come out clean on this, because this is Libya now. Tomorrow will be another country. All this is about oil. Yep. It's all about oil, which is just a stone throw away from Europe. The cheapest oil that Europe can get. The cheapest oil that Ankara can get. The cheapest oil, because it's just across the Mediterranean, and it's a large or huge volumes. Now, we are now talking about Somalia. The prospects of oil in Somalia, huge prospects of oil, have a guarantee that we are not able to reconstruct the Somali state. Anybody who get a good handling of the Somali situation is basically dissembled in order not to be able to have stability. Why? Because there is a theory called you profit more in conflict than in stable situation. In stable situations, you'll be taxed, you'll be monitored, and a government that is in charge can make a choice to sell to you or to your competition. So the best thing is to scrub the game, create disorder, and do what we call entrepreneurship of conflict. And that's what we are seeing in Libya at best. It is what we are seeing in Mali because of uranium, and it is what we are seeing in Somalia because of the prospects of oil.
So this profiteering from the conflict and this particular Berlin conference, they're not very clear also on the interference, the refraining from the interference they're talking about. Can you see a lot of ambiguity as far as the refraining is concerned?
It is not ambiguity. As long as you can profit from oil, what does it take? Executive outcome and other security comes. You guard the oil comes and it goes to the sea. You can now talk about the Libyan population, whether they have peace or not peace. But oil goes on. That's what is happening in Iraq. Yes. Oil goes on irrespective of what is happening. is extracted.
And and I've just seen also in Iraq the resumption of oil drilling is back as well.
Yes, this is what we are saying.
This is what the US
but we need to hammer that point on again, because the moral advantage that the West is taking on us, that they are convening meetings to look for peace when they are siphoning our resources, is not useful.
Right. Let's hear from...
I can't agree more. And just to sort of make an underline to what Professor is saying is this. There's what is called a war economy. And war economies thrive in ungoverned spaces. And Libya is an ungoverned space. The international community failed on Libya. President Obama regretted, because every Tomahawk bomb is $1 million, and someone has to pay it. And the politics of oil there and the spoils of war is what is going on. It is sad that we have to live in a world like this. And you know what some of the Europeans are doing, some of it is genuine, because what they are trying to say is that, you know what, unless we deal with this problem here, which somehow we created, we'll still continue to get extremists, we'll still continue to get what do you call illegal immigrants, and the crisis that is there. You know, you see just a child floating on the shore, a dead child, and those things are happening because we have an ungoverned space. Now, there's something Hashi said here. Itihad Maghribi al-Arabi, what you're calling Arab Maghreb, is a dead thing. The last meeting it had was, I think, in 2001 or something like that. And why? It's the same thing we are saying here, that, well, there are three approaches to African politics. You can take sort of a modernization approach, neo-Marxist or dependency kind of thing. But then there's a statist approach. And so we have to challenge ourselves also. How well have we cleaned our house? Because it is interference that people have agreed with. By the way, as you organize here with Al-Shabaab, which I don't trust is anything, but is being now used, because those spaces like that, competition for resources in Somalia, some people don't want order so that they can get oil and other things. But unless we are organized as Africans, people will come and try to put order in our house. And we really have got to make our people to be convinced, and we charge forward as one community, one nation, one Africa.
Professor Nomi Damba.
Well, there was a point of a time in history when all kinds of countries went into China. Japan went to Manchuria and controlled that area, and other Western interests were in China at the same time. China has grown to be a very powerful nation, and therefore there is non-interference from international community. Africa is porous, the border is porous, and Africa is weak, and Africa cannot stand on its own. Not because we don't have the ability, we do have the people to stand up for Africa. And Africa need to be on the world stage, talking with one voice, combining its force together, vis-a-vis the rest of the world. So this Berlin conference was unique. It was not the same like 1884, because Angela Merkel took a very different role, and Germany is playing a different role. They're not playing dominant role, but they are German interest in Libya, like every other group in Libya. They are the one funding the warlord, Khalifa. They are on the other side at the same time. The good news is that Turkey and Russia are not going to compromise their relationship and to the bigger picture of the Middle East. Russia has basically won the Middle East, and Turkey is right there with them. So they will not get in a fight over the desert in Libya, and that is a better posture. But we have all kinds of Europeans, all kinds of imaginary people that are involved in the shadow. South Africa has to take upper hand, the role, and then invite everybody to the table in order to settle what began, what Peter was talking about, that Gaddafi has committed to settle and go back to a democratic way. Before Hillary Clinton took over the mantle from Barack Obama, and talk about regime change. Okay? That's where we are right now.
Thank you.
It is a mess.
Right. Let's just play that particular clip and hear what the UN Secretary General had to say from that Berlin conference. Then we continue briefly.
We need to have a ceasefire. We have a truce. And one central question is that all the participants today committed to support the ceasefire and committed to put pressure on the parties to the conflict for a full ceasefire to be reached. First, I cannot stress enough the summit's conclusion that there is no military solution to the conflict in Libya. All participants have mentioned it several times during the meeting, even those that are more directly involved in the conflict itself.
Right. Let's have from Ahmed Hashi, your reaction.
I think I disagree with the UN Secretary General. And he's very much like the AU. He's also missing in action in a lot of things in this world. And you remember that the UN Security Council used to be, and the person of the Secretary General used to be one of the great political leaders of every historical period since when it was formed. The UN Secretary General was at the power with presidents, and he had great moral authority, and he had the ability to travel to meet one-on-one with the leaders of the world and try and solve problems. Of course, Debal, nowadays we don't have that. We have a Secretary General that's subservient to the Security Council, particularly the Americans in the system. So I think that the solution in Libya is a military one. It's not a negotiated one. It's not a ceasefire. It's not, because these two foes are implacable foes, if I could repeat the word. One is the legitimate, so-called legitimate group has got Western backing, and the other group has got Russian backing. And I think that the Libyan people are caught in between. But at the end of the day, Debal, I said on the program last week, someone needs to take Tripoli, capture Tripoli, and stop this nonsense that's going on in Libya. Because what is happening there now is Debal, every little terrorist group and everybody who wants to be a merchant of death and anybody who wants to sell little kids to captivity is now going to Libya because there's no state authority. So, you know, you could have a bleeding liberal talk about these negotiated settlements and you know, this human rights issues, and I think they could bleed all they want. But if there's a military solution there, it's captured and law and order is returned and this nonsense stops, then you can press these groups for democratic reforms, human rights, and you cannot have human rights and democratic politics and all this when there's bedlam going on there.
So you think the lack of military solution, you know, on the table, that is a wrong trajectory?
No, the diagnosis of the problem, and I agree with Hashi, this is sickening. Yeah. Yes. The UN has access to literature on this kind of situations. Power sharing in a situation of insurgency reinforces insurgents. You kill more, you have a more comfortable place on the table. That is what power sharing is all about. If you can't kill, you cannot be on the table. So you are multiplying insurgency as people trying to become politically relevant in a chaotic situation. Solution to it is basically an intervention force by the UN, international force, that gets rid of these European interests and other interests and reaffirm the African interest. Then put that country in order. I mean, for how many, Angola was at war for thousands, I mean, for hundreds of years, and after independence, decades in Cold War. It ended in one day. Just one day, because the Angolans decided we have to add this, and they added it. And today, who talks about chaotic Angola? Who talks about civil war in Angola? No UN was involved, no nothing. You cannot end a military situation where we have insurgents through negotiations. Nope. You just reinforce insurgency. Yeah. It is enlightening.
All right.
I mean, I'm not saying anything new.
Okay. All right. Of course, I'll come back to you. Just give a headlining thoughts. Also, make sure you grab a copy of the recent copy of Marine Times. which is really focusing on this war also in Iran. And it's asking this probing question: how does this end? War with Iran, pull out from Iraq, right? Sizing up what's also next for the U.S. military. And I wanted to show you what they've acknowledged here as well, just to read some of the sentiments they had on of honor, or honoring the fallen there. We had this particular U.S. Soldier that was killed here at the coast. That is a U.S. soldier. Says he was killed on January the 5th, south of Kenya-Somalia border. Army SPC Henry Mitch Mayfield Jr., who was 23, was supporting Operation Octave Shield. The name of the mission focused on targeting militant groups in Somalia. The attack included mortars and small arms fires. The militants, part of a regional Al-Qaeda franchise, breached the base's perimeter and damaged 6 aircraft. Mayfield was assigned to 1st Battalion, 58th Aviation Regiment. And of course, the rest of the details are given there. They're just honoring that young man that was the victim of the attack at the coast. Let's just get your headline thoughts on this, on what we've discussed so far as Standing on Guard is concerned today. Let's begin with you, Hassan Kanenje.
Well, perhaps we should also consider, at least in honor of our fallen men and women in uniform, at least putting something out there, because a lot of times, more often, they're forgotten. But perhaps as part of my closing remarks is the world is changing, and I think as a country and as a continent, we also need to change. Mm-hmm. And the recent efforts right now to try and bring about peace in Libya and to bring it back to the African continent is positive. However, the African Union needs to demonstrate the willingness, the desire, and the capacity to actually show up when the lights are bright. Because a lot of times, our inaction is what allows foreigners to mess up with us. And I think as a part of time, we actually changed that kind of attitude and took over and reclaimed our own continent and our own affairs.
Amaraji.
About an entirely different issue. 75 years ago, the Soviet Union liberated the camps in Auschwitz, where there was a murder of 1.1 million Jewish prisoners. And we ought to always remember that the capacity for human beings to do evil things is huge. And we in Africa have to be particularly careful because the world is in conflict, and we ought to protect our continent, and we ought to protect our interests, and that starts by getting new leaders to change our attitudes and the way we want to do things on this continent.
Right. Dr. Momonzao?
Yeah, the fallen gallant soldier and Kenyan security personnel and every other government official who has lost their life in defending this country can never be forgotten. We launched the Soldier's Legacy, and that is part of the entire celebration of our great heroes and heroines of this country. And I tell Kenyans that we cannot succumb to any kind of Al-Shabaab propaganda, and any person who is aiding such people is doing it against the national interest, against the national will, and that will not succeed.
Right. Nomi Damba.
The country, Kenya, is facing several challenges. Mounting debt, a number of rising costs for education, for healthcare, for everything, and also threat from Al-Shabaab and people who don't want us. There are only 2 things we must do as a country. We must bring Kenyans together this must be government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And lastly, we must get rid of corruption at all costs, anywhere and everywhere.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, panelists, for that delectable discussion we've just had on standing on guard, keeping an eye on the enemy, what is happening so far as the terrorism is concerned, especially with the resurgence of the Al-Shabaab. And they seem not to be seeing eye to eye as far as resurgence is concerned from our scholars here. But of course, we shall be continuing with that particular keen eye on what is happening on that particular front, and how also the government is trying to make sure they're also keeping in tow and in touch with what the Al-Shabaab is doing to just try and reconfigure also their their strategy as far as that particular combating terrorism strategy is concerned. Right, we want to also cross over to Dan Mwangi, who's standing by right now. Of course, AM Live Plus continues on the other side. This is 8 to 9, an extension of the AM Live, and we have Dan Mwangi standing on standing by just to also welcome us. Right, Dan,
yes,
good morning.
Jibal, I'm also standing on guard just like you and your gentlemen here have been. Good morning to all of you.
Yeah, I was trying to move from standing on guard to standing by.
Standing by. We are standing by on guard. We can always do it together.
Sure.
Because we indeed are one. That's true. We are going to be having an hour of just updating on what exactly is happening across the country, just picking up what the different news items are, what we're going to be looking forward to in the day ahead. There's a lot, especially in the health sector, that's going on today. And we shall also be looking at what has come up on social media. For instance, there's an issue about hospitals which have been accused of hoodwinking their patients in terms of your extended stay, in terms of when you've been admitted to hospital just for the sake of revenue. Are we being treated to exploitation? We'll be looking into that in the hour coming ahead. My name is Dan Mwangi. We take the break for AM Live Plus to come, and thank you once again, gentlemen. Thank you, Dibal. Have yourselves a great morning.
Did you know? We operate in 12 countries within the continent and internationally, making us a leading African banking group. Absa Group, serving Kenya as Barclays.
Just move into the weekend where there's something for everyone. For relationship, financial, and travel information, grab the Saturday Magazine. For trendy farming practices and the latest in agricultural technology, read Seeds of Gold every Saturday. Get your gossip and entertainment news in The Buzz every Sunday. For updates on lifestyle hacks, read Lifestyle every Sunday. To keep your child entertained, get Young Nation every Sunday, covering your needs.
There are many layers to a woman. Peel back these layers and figure out exactly what type you're dealing with.
That sounded almost enlightened.
I happened to meet one last night. He's a surgeon.
I know how men operate. I can prove it. If you want it to work out with this guy, then you'll do exactly as I say. Okay, I got you.
Not if you can hear me.
Put the hot dog in your mouth slowly.
Oh!
Wow, you look great.
Oh, I was just doing the dishes. He's such a great guy.
Yeah, he's dreamy.
The Three Sides of Anna.
I'm so worried, Mother, and I'm so pissed that I'm here right now and I can't do anything but wait for Amir to call us back. Is there no other way we can find out which hospital they brought Santiago to?
Mrs. Remedios did nothing but take care of him and love him and protect him.
That woman made my son reject his real life, his origin.
Don't raise your voice, please, Tadeo.
I need to know the truth, Julieta. Tell me if that young man lying in that coffin is my son.
You may be my husband's lover, but you know perfectly well that you have no right over him. And even though you may not like to hear it, I am still Marcella's wife.
The Three Sides of Anna.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Nilizae kama hajalema.
Serikali leta dawa gani?
It's almost a year, nothing has been done.
I just need some form of information.
Dr. Mugo Wairimu first hit the headlines when a video clip showing him raping an unconscious female patient in his clinic.
Wale wanaohusika pia wanajulikana lakini hawashikwi.
With the puzzle surrounding the sugar saga yet to be cleared.
How many times were you sexually abused?
Like 3 times.
How was a convicted child molester allowed to set up a children's home in the country?
NTV News. Bold, balanced, authoritative.
There are many layers to a woman. Peel back these layers and figure out exactly what type you're dealing with.
That sounded almost enlightened.
I happened to meet one last night. He's a surgeon.
I know how men operate. I can prove it. If you want it to work out with this guy, then you'll do exactly as I say. Okay, I got you.
Not if you can hear me.
Put the hot dog in your mouth slowly.
Oh!
Wow, you look great.
Oh, I was just doing the dishes. He's such a great guy.
Yeah, he's dreamy.
I'm sure that nobody can deny that it's Salvador in the footage.
How could you even consider him as family? Salvador is the one who killed the only family you had left. Look.
What are you talking about?
How can you say that? Aren't the lives that were lost enough to prove his guilt? The people you saw, the testimonies you heard, aren't they enough? Please, no!
You know, I always knew you weren't good at playing hide and seek. But this is the last time.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every day, NTV News team moves you to the center of the action.
The security forces who took part in this operation.
Police are not taking anything to chance.
Moves you to the heart of the story to witness and record history.
Rendering the declared results null and void.
Telling the story of Kenya.
The growing importance of border in Mandera.
Matatus will be on strike.
And beyond.
The politics in the United States capital.
It is the 7th edition of the Global Education taking place in Dubai.
When it comes to business, we crunch the numbers and unpack the detail with the latest information for your investment decision.
It's time to say goodbye to this note and karibu to this note.
In order for the manufacturing sector to be elevated from the ground.
Despite the government's promise to create at least 1.3 million jobs.
Moves you fast past the planes and trucks to bring you the triumphs and joys of our great men and women.
Moving stories that touch our hearts.
I didn't know that I could go back to school.
The Back to School program has brought hope to these young mothers.
NTV News. News that moves you.
Gari ndio hii Haya, kujeni tuangalie.
From 4 to 8 p.m. on the Nation Drive. More music.
Haya, ngeni muangalie.
You people have been found guilty of listening to Nation FM. Anton Naubina. On that note, everybody in this matatu is being paid for fare today.
Tunakemea January.
Just move to more music and less talk. Nation FM will be rewarding all mathrees tuned in to Nation FM. Watch out for the team as we visit various parts of the county. Nominate a circle that tunes in using the hashtag JustMove. Tag us and we will pay your fare.
Let me call you back.
Kemea in January, only on Nation FM.
One thing I know, my God, my tomorrow. Yeah.
changes in programming.
You are my 10 over 10 girl.
Babe, tuende. Yani namaliza almost 1 hour before.
Bahati Reality moves to Monday at 10 p.m.
Fact Finder, the show that puts you in the know.
The BBC Fact Finder will be at 10:30 p.m.
Fact Finder from the BBC.
Lit 360.
You can never really appreciate art unless you know the process behind it.
The Lit 360 moves to Wednesday at 10 p.m.
This is going to be a long conversation.
And Press Pass moves to Thursday.
Press Pass. Accountability to the Fourth Estate.
Ukiona mtoto ana mood, hachezi vizuri, inafaa upeleke mtoto hospitali, sio pharmacy.
When the place is so cold, then usually, even if they bite someone with malaria.
When I come back, I usually get malaria.
You really need to take initiative in as far as protecting you and your family from malaria. Prevention is better than cure.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Health is where we spend quite a lot of our money. About 30% of our entire budget goes to healthcare. We started by starting to build a big hospital, and phase 1 is near completion. I'm hopeful before the end of this year it will be ready to be operationalized.
Well, welcome to AM Live Plus, a continuation of the AM Live broadcast, and we've been having some serious conversations in regards to standing on guard in the first hour, in the first 2 hours, I beg your pardon. And in the next hour, we're going to be looking at what to expect today, what is in the news for you, what are the updates that we are going to bring to you, and as well a brief conversation on a matter of interest. And the one we're having today is about health and the cost of healthcare, and whether the healthcare providers are actually fleecing you and taking and exploiting you. We shall be having that discussion with 2 guests in studio later on. But before then, we want to get an idea of what's happening in Kenya, in the country. We've got our correspondents across various parts of the country just giving us a brief, will be giving us a brief of what to expect in their areas, right from Nairobi to Taita Taveta, Kisii, Nyeri. We shall be having Nakuru and various other places just to understand what exactly is happening today and what we should expect in the day that is ahead, and that is in regard to the news agenda and the different issues that are coming up in various parts of the country. And so today is a busy day in regards to health, and so we shall begin with our health reporter, Eunice Omolo, who is standing by in studio, in the NTV studio. Eunice, it's a busy day for health. There's CS Health, who is still a CS because many people are having the lack of understanding that she is yet to move away from health because the nominated successor, that is Mutahi Kagwe, is yet to be vetted and approved. If he's approved, that is, and then sworn in. So until then, Cecily Kariuki still holds fort in the Ministry of Health, and she's having a significant event. Maybe you can give us a quick brief of what to expect or what's happening in the health space in Nairobi.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you very much. And today we have a couple of assignments that will be following up at the health desk. To begin with, we have the launch of the Kenya Harmonized Health Facilities Assessment report that is expected to be launched at Laiko Regency at 9 a.m. And as you've said, Cecily Kariuki, who is still the CS for health, will be presiding over the event, and the report aims at giving an overview of the state of facilities in the country, both at the sub-county level, county level, and the national level. And based on this, it will guide in decision making in terms of investment in improving these facilities. Remember, this year we're going to have the nationwide launch of universal health coverage, and this report is going to play a key role in where this county government, or rather the national government, is going to be setting aside or giving its weight in in terms of investment. And this happens at a time also where the Ministry of Health or the national government is signing the intergovernmental participation agreement with county governments, and whereby the county governments are pledging to, set aside 30% or more of their annual government in health financing, and also planning to improve the health resource, and that this was based on some of the challenges that was faced in the pilot phase of universal health coverage in Isiolo, Machakos, Kisumu, and Nyeri. And then quickly, the second assignment that we'll be following is matters mental health, and today a consortium of human rights groups and some survivors of mental health will be meeting to discuss or to raise some key issues in line with the legality of the mental health task force. Remember, this mental health task force was set aside, was formed by the CS Health last year to look into issues or matters mental health in the country. And the task force is aimed at looking or highlighting these cases and come up with a report after 90 days, whereby after that there'll be a mental health policy that will give the guidelines in terms of dealing with mental health issues in the country. And already the mental health task force has visited a number of towns in the country. They started their assignment in Meru. They went to Makueni, they went to Eldoret, they went to Nyeri, they went to Kisumu, they went to Kakamega, and today they'll be in Garissa, where they'll be holding public talks in their fact-finding mission. And then next week, they're expected to continue with their fact-finding mission in Nairobi County. Then we are also looking at Cervical Cancer Awareness Week. This week is Cervical Cancer Awareness Week. Remember, cervical cancer is the second leading cancer in the country, especially among women, and around 5,000 cases are reported annually, and about 3,000 deaths are also reported. And then finally, today, the outgoing CS, Cecily Kariuki, is expected to take over at the Ministry of Water and Sanitation as we await further vetting of the incoming health CS, Mtai Kagwe. And I think that's all we have from the health desk, and I will be following up more stories as they come through. From my side, I'm Dan, although I'm not Dan Mwangi. Dan, I know you have a very interesting health discussion in the studio. Back to you, Dan Mwangi.
Much, Eunice, and yes, I'm done, but I'm not done with the show. We still have a lot more to look into. And aside from what Eunice has told us quite eloquently, we also have Bill Otieno, who is standing by in the county of Taita Taveta, where we want to understand, Bill, what do we expect today on the news agenda? What's happening, or is it a quiet day in your county? Maybe give us a quick brief.
A very good morning from here in Taita Taveta, Dan, and we are joining the broadcast from Voi. And indeed, we are following up on the case of Sonko arrest. So Sonko did appear at the court yesterday, Voi Law Court, and he did present himself before Magistrate Frederick Nyakundi. And the case that he was supposed to be had came to a conclusion that the complainant, that was the Coast Regional Police Commander, had brought down his case. He dropped the case, and today we are expecting to see Sonko appearing at the court before Frederick Nyakundi, so that we see Frederick Nyakundi making the ruling about the same. We are also following up on the story about we have more than 30 American nationals here in Taita Taveta, and we are expecting them to go around the Taveta sub-county inspecting the agricultural projects that are being funded by United States Aid, that is the USAID, and they've been camping in the region or at the Taveta town for a period of 3 days. We're expecting them to be joined by local leaders from this point, including the Deputy Governor, and as well as they will be moving, from what we've been told, they will be moving on their way to Emali, Pasley, Tok. That's what I'll be following up for today. But of course, from here, I'm going back to the court, and we understand Sonko spent his night here, and he will be appearing before the court.
much, Bill Otieno, for keeping tabs and just keeping, an eye on the capital where we are in regards to the governor's case and what is going to be ruled and what the way forward is on this. And that's from the county of Taita Taveta. And we also have a brief from the county of Kisii, and Janet Nyamamu is standing by from our Kisii Bureau offices, I believe, where we can see there's some appreciation of art there. We can see some kind of artwork on the side. Janet, what do we expect from you today?
Dan, you are right. I'm here at our Kisii Bureau offices, and it's a good morning here. And Kisii has been a lucky Kisii because the Kisii County Governor this week landed 2 plum posts in the Council of Governors. He landed 1 plum post in the Council of Governors barely a week after being elected to deputize Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya in the Lake Region Economic Bloc. Governor Ngwae was on Monday 20th elected to chair the Human Resource, Labor and Social Welfare Committee. Speaking of the county boss, Governor Ngwae yesterday passed by the Public Participation Forum on the proposed Public Finance Management Coffee Cherry Advance Revolving Fund, and he urged the government to waive the farmers' levies, the farmers' loans, the farmers' fund, the farmers' loans that they have been acquiring, so that the coffee sector can advance. The Coffee Cherry Advance Revolving Fund is aimed at facilitating loans to the coffee farmers to improve production and earnings to the farmers. The national government has set aside, as you know, Dan, 3 billion shillings to operationalize the fund. And another story that we've been looking at is the gender-based violence story that a woman was cut off her hand by an in-law in Kenya, and the woman is recuperating at the Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital, whereby the Kisii County Women Rep visited and some women visited the victim of the gender-based violence, and they condemned the act and said that this act has to stop. And moving to Nyamira County, you know, Gusii region has 2 counties, Nyamira and Kisii counties. In Nyamira County, there's a meeting at the Nyamira County government offices where the Nyamira County Governor, John Nyagarama, is expected to attend a meeting that will be the meeting is about the dissemination of the 2nd county revenue report as presented by the African Peer Review Mechanism Kenya Secretariat, which is a NEPAD initiative. Those are some of the stories that we will be looking on from Nyamira and Kisii County. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Janet Nyamamu, for that brief on the Gusii region. That is the Kisii and Nyamira counties. Thank you for that brief. We shall be looking to see what comes out of all those functions and just what happens to the case of the gender-based violence, where the lady, she says, has had her hand cut by an in-law. Those are the allegations that we are receiving. Now we cross over to the county of Nyeri, where we have Melita Oletenge standing by. Melita, good morning. What do you expect from your end? I believe there's some health matters. And you also had an interesting story last night about some students who are suspended for having tattoos. What are you looking for today?
Yes, indeed, Dan. Thank you. Of course, that story has elicited a number of reactions from within the county and even beyond. People coming out to air their views, saying that they feel that the students should be allowed to continue with their studies in school, while others are condemning the issue of students having tattoos on their body and even going to school. And this matter, of course, we will be keenly following up just to get if there will be any development further on this story. Of course, we are hoping to get a statement from the education officials later, just to tell us the stand of the education sector in regards to this, because the students were sent out of a private school. Away from that, Dan, is that the universal health coverage here in Nyeri is facing strains. This is because the funds that were allocated for the universal health coverage the pilot phase, are diminishing, and we understand that at the moment the county has had to borrow some of the required things at the hospital from food and pharmaceuticals and even medicine on credit, and this is not looking good for the county health sector, especially since also the 93 health workers that were employed under the pilot phase of the universal health coverage are saying that their dues are yet to be paid, and some of the food suppliers are saying that they have yet to be paid for the supplies they made. Remember, Nyeri County is one of the pilot counties for UHC alongside Machakos, Kisumu and Isiolo, and Nyeri County received 159 million shillings, which is just 50% of the total amount which they ought to have received, that is 359 million shillings, to successfully run the pilot phase of the universal health coverage. So there are a number of strains in the health sector here in Nyeri, and of course we will be looking forward to speak to a number of officials in the county concerned with the department, just to get how the county is handling this matter. So we will be following up and of course informing you and our viewers. But for now, over to you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Melissa Oletenges, and we look forward to seeing what will come out of the county of Nyeri in regards to what he's briefed us on and much more. And now we cross over to a not too far county from that one, the county of Murang'a, where Martin Mora is standing by before we go to the county of Nakuru. Martin, what's happening in Murang'a? Is it a busy day, a silent day? Give us a brief.
Yes, thank you so much, Dan. It's a bright Wednesday morning from County 021 here. And as you have said, it is not a busy one, but I know it will keep us on toes though. But just to give a sneak peek of what is happening today is that, Dan, on Monday, remember, I said that there are 3 students who drowned at a river in the border between Kiharu and Kangema constituency. Now, Dan, to bring to the tabs of viewers is that 2 bodies have been retrieved so far. One more, the ongoing search, there's a search ongoing for the 3rd body. And I remember there's another 2 guys who drowned in Kandara. Their bodies have not yet been retrieved, but the search exercise is still ongoing. Now, something else that I would like to bring to attention, Dan, is that last week there's a police officer who was viciously attacked, and a traffic police officer who was viciously attacked and his gun stolen. Police have launched a manhunt, and they're asking for the residents and people of Murang'a to volunteer information that may lead to the recovery of the gun. They're saying the gun is at the wrong hands and can be used to harm the people of Murang'a. So they're asking the people to provide information so that the police can be able to recover the gun before it is used illegally. Something else that has come to attention is that there was a meeting that was held yesterday between coffee farmers from Murang'a and members of the board that was seeking views on the revolving fund, the cherry coffee revolving fund that the government, the 3 billion the government has set aside. Something that came up seriously is that the issue of coffee theft is back in Murang'a. And the farmers are raising concerns, saying that even if the money will be available and this issue of coffee theft is not stopped, it will really lead to more losses to the farmers. Dan, those are some of the few views that we are following up from the county of Murang'a, but we'll keep you on the tabs as more unfold. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Martin Mora, for that comprehensive briefing in regards to the county of Murang'a, and we shall be looking forward to see what happens. The coffee theft issue has been one that we've been reporting. Personally, as a business journalist, we've been covering this over the years, and at times, many of the times, we hear the suspicions of inside jobs. Let's see whether this is still a case of the same, because the CS Interior had actually even pronounced himself upon this, saying that they're going to get rid of it, but we see it's still yet to be tamed. Let's cross counties to the county of Nakuru, where Bridget Ngana is standing by. Good morning, Bridget. What is happening in your county today?
Well, what's happening today is that there will be a burial service for the 3 pupils who died in the lightning strike at Kuresoi in Mkulima Primary School, and that is sometime last week. So today they're going to just have a joint service for the 3 at Kuresoi Center, and also the Regional Commissioner, George Natembea, will be heading on towards Baragoi in Samburu County, and this follows cases of banditry that have just started recently, and he's going just to assess the issues there and kind of try and bring security in that region. In Nyandarua, unfortunately, a high school teacher was killed in Engineer in Kinangop, and this is something that has shocked the Kupet, because they're saying that the violence against teachers is now on the rise in the country. But that is what is really happening on this end regarding the activities that are going to take place. But today we do expect to cover the funeral service of the three as their parents decide to take their bodies to different parts of the country.
Bridget, for that concise brief on what's happening in your region, that is in the county of Nakuru as well as the neighboring county of Nyandarua. Thank you very much, Bridget. And that's some of what's happening in the country in terms of the different counties. But let's take a look at some of the events that are set to happen today. And first off, on today's diary, the Ministry of Health, in collaboration with the counties and support from the development partners, are this morning to launch 2 key documents and a web-based health information system to strengthen the delivery of health services across the country. Cabinet Secretary for Health, that's Cecily Kariuki, is slated to preside over the official launch of the Kenya Harmonized Health Facility Assessment Report, the Kenya Health and Research Observatory web portal, as well as the County Vital Signs Profile. We look forward to getting the pulse of the health sector today, one which has seen various issues that have manifested as poor service delivery, misdiagnosis cases, high cost of healthcare, strikes by various cadres of medical professionals, as well as medical breakthroughs and fasts for some counties. Now, the counties and the country and the region at large. Now, aside from that, we also have persons who have lived experience on mental health, and civil society organizations are working in the same space, that is, are set to hold a press conference to address issues in regards to the recently launched task force on mental health, as directed by the President and effected by the CS. The aim of the press conference is to raise concerns on the legitimacy of the task force in dealing with substantive issues on mental health. Over the years, there has been increased evidence of the need for greater attention to this dynamic of wellness. Also happening today is that the Kenya Defence Forces medical camp at the Mtongo dispensary in the county of Mombasa kicks off. The camp is part of the KDF Civil Military Cooperation Program and is expected to aid in improving the health of the community in Mtongo and its environs, so the Mtongo Naval Base. Now this, the KDF says, is geared towards the achievement of the universal health coverage. Further, the CS for Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, that's CS Peter Munya, hosts a stakeholders consultative forum for the medium and small enterprises, that's MSMEs, and the forum will bring together development partners, parastatals, private sector players and government officials to give their views on the proposed changes to the MSMEs policy that was last revised many years ago. The ministry says the public participation review fora on the MSMEs policy have just ended across the 47 counties. Now, lastly on our diary, which is one among many, is that the outgoing Water and Sanitation CS, who is now the CS Labour and Social Protection, Simon Chelugui, is set to hand over the Ministry of Water to outgoing Health CS Cecily Kariuki. The handover ceremony is set to take place in Maji House, and this follows the cabinet which the head of state announced last week. CS Kariuki is still running the health ministry, as we had said. Now, we also have a number of things that are topping the news agenda and are likely to have developments today, things that we are monitoring. And the first thing we are keeping our eye on is that also on the delegation developing stories list is the muscle flexing at the University of Nairobi. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Steve Kiama, who was reinstated by the courts after Education CS kicked him out yesterday, sent home the man the CS had put in office to replace him. The turmoil at the top of the country's largest tertiary institution, that is, has seen memo after memo being sent out from different offices and individuals. And will today be an exception? That's the question many are asking. And we're keeping our eye on the ground, on the power play ground at the UON. Further, the cost of imported goods could soon go up after the Kenya Trade Network Agency, that's KenTrade, introduced service fees for use of its systems. KenTrade provides an online platform which serves the entry point for parties involved in international trade and transport logistics. More than 800,000 traders using the KenTrade, that's the Kenya National Electronic Single Window System, that's the Kenya TradeNet system to lodge import and export documents will have to pay for the services starting this month, a move which will increase cost of imports. We're looking to see how various stakeholders will chime into the matter, and if they do, we shall relay their sentiments to you. Another matter we are keeping an eye on, which is a key topic in the public domain, is the war on terror, coming in a month that has seen some attacks launched in various parts of the country, especially in the north, as well as a number of other attempts thwarted. Kenya's vigilance continues to be called for. We are looking to see if there will be any developments on the ongoing discourse in the war on terror. And next on our Keeping an Eye on segment is that there's something else that is likely to draw various reactions across the country, as it already did yesterday, at least last night and going into this morning. 10 students from St. Mary's Boys Secondary School in Nyeri were suspended for having tattoos on their bodies. This has already seen a line drawn in the perspectives between the conservative and the liberal people in society. What has also come to the fore is the place of the law, or the lack of it, on tattoos, especially for minors. Faith-based schools have stood firm in not allowing tattooing among their students. However, the challenge is the lack of regulation in the growing industry. What will be said by who, and what will it be about today? We're looking out to keep an eye on it and our ear on the ground on the same. And now we're going to look at what happened today in years gone by. What happened on this very day, 22nd January. In 1973, abortion was legalized in the United States of America as the Supreme Court announced its decision in the case of Roe versus Wade, striking down local state laws restricting abortions in the first 6 months of pregnancy. In more recent rulings, in 1989 and 1992, the court upheld the power of individual states to impose some restrictions. And over 100 years ago today, specifically in 1901, Queen Victoria of England died after reigning for 64 years. Hers was the longest reign in British history, during which England had become the most powerful empire in the world. And on this day in 1970, the Boeing 747 made its first commercial passenger trip to London, England. This flight had departed from New York City and had carried 332 passengers and 18 crew. Although most passengers enjoyed the flight, one had mentioned that this plane is too big for commercial travel, which was also perceived to be saying it was too big to give anyone proper service. A pulse check on the social media space. We shall be keeping a pulse check on the social media space to understand what exactly is happening there. And one thing that happened that was big yesterday on social media coming today is Boniface Mwangi, the activist, was driving on one of the Nairobi roads, and he came head on, so to speak, with a convoy of VVIP's cars, and he chose not to move from the road. That what you can see on your screen is now some of the security detail of the Heshimiwa, if we may call them that, as they would like to be called, was coming to him, and even he knocked his window, but Boniface in the background is actually saying no, he will not open, he will not move rather from the way, because they're on the wrong side of the road. The law does provide for some people to be allowed to use the wrong side of the road. Specifics, yes, this was brought out by the Ministry of Interior, but this is also a disclaimer that at times the IG, I believe, can actually give a directive on who else can do this.
I am not moving. I'm not moving. I am not moving. No, you don't stay on the wrong side. Tabia mbaya. I'm not moving.
That's Boniface Mwangi for you, tabia mbaya to the leaders, and he's quite bold. Some of the reactions were online were just about how some people were defending him. Some were saying you need to be careful because it could bring you to a lot of trouble. And there's a lot of reactions on that, so you can just check on social media pages just to see what exactly Kenyans and beyond have spoken about this incident. Now, something else that came up on social media yesterday was a thread that was done by At Owa, where he was pretty much giving a sneak peek into what has been claimed is happening at various hospitals. He had one hospital specifically where, for instance, the management has become, according to allegations, even on that thread and beyond that it's become all about making money. And I've got two people in that sector who are with us in studio this morning. Two gentlemen. Thank you. We've got Dr. Simon Kigondu, who's the Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Association, as well as Dr. Ahmed Mohamed, the Chairman of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. First of all, let's begin with you, the hospital owners. From the thread that we saw there, we saw that it's a private hospital that is being accused of you guys, not you specifically, but I talk about you because you're an association, have been accused of exploiting, if that's the word we should use here, exploiting patients just to make your money. Is this true? Did you see the thread?
I have seen.
Is it true in your view?
I wouldn't know whether the thread was true or not, because it says it was 2018, and it was cherry-picked. You would see the information is not flowing. Someone decided to pick certain things out of that conversation. That's if it's true. But yeah, I wouldn't know.
All right.
Whether, yes.
And I'll just let you know that we on our side have confirmed that it's a true state of affairs. That notwithstanding, the issue is not only on that one hospital.
Yes.
It's about many hospitals.
Yes.
Do you acknowledge that this happens in hospitals?
I wouldn't. Yes, you might have a few hospitals here and there that might be practicing XYZ, but it's not universal, and it's not every hospital. What we need to realize is all those patients that we are talking about, because what I have seen from the info is if you have an insurance card, you will be charged a little bit extra.
Yes.
The assumption is that the insurance company is some village company that are not after profit making and are not also looking at what is being charged, because every patient needs to go through verification, you invoice. On the other side, they have doctors, they have nurses who go through those invoices and look at the clinical notes as well to say, this is correct, this is correct, this is not correct, we will not pay, we will not pay for this, we will not. And what we also forget is they have limits. For example, an insurance company will say, before you dispense drugs more than 3,000 shilling, seek pre-authorization. So I have seen a lot of people saying, oh, I have been given drugs worth 10,000. It means there was a reason for it. Your insurance was consulted. They pre-authorized and said, yes, this is fine, we agree with it, proceed. Okay. So it's not, there are a lot of checks and balances that happen that might not be clear to the common man.
Okay,
yes.
Dr. Kigondo, let me come to you. First and foremost, based on the thread, because when we spoke earlier on, you told me you've seen it. Is this a real state of affairs that's happening in our hospitals?
First, I want to give a shout out to all the nurses, because this is the year of the nurse. That's very important in the health sector. Secondly, we want to say that for you to seek health in a private institution is not a bad thing. But for you to seek health in a private institution because the public institution has collapsed is what leads to people being vulnerable to profiteering practices. Thirdly, I want to say that does have a Hippocratic oath. They wouldn't do things like that. And if they did, it's a hospital is supposed to measure, and this may lead to unethical behavior. So you may find threads like that where it probably looked like someone who was dissatisfied and deeply concerned about the goings-on in that particular institution and probably decides, well...
So do you acknowledge that this is happening?
Our members at Kenya Medical Association thinks that they should report that incident report. So this particular one, we haven't received. But we have received reports of private hospitals which have not paid members dues. Members have worked and their fees have not been paid. And this falls in the same categorization of privateering. What is profit? If you are running a private institution for profit, is income minus expenditure. So if you can minimize your expenditure, for instance, by employing cheap staff who are not qualified, but you put them as qualified, then you have minimized your expenditure. Profit is likely to go up. If you don't pay the doctor, you have minimized your expenditure despite them doing work. Income has come in from work done, but you have not, So some of these things, if your key aim is not improvement of the patient getting well, then human nature has it that some of these things may happen.
You've answered in a very diplomatic way, just to say yes. I'll help you here. Said yes, it happens. But again, you're both doctors.
Yes.
By the time the hospital owner is telling this, like what we've seen on the thread and what we've seen on also other people who've also reached out to us, because many people feel that it's a matter of public interest, a critic oath. Some are saying it's hypocritic because is it that you're not an independent thinker? What happened? Or is it you're too afraid to be fired? Because you're too afraid to be fired because you own the hospital I work in, and you tell me, like what you saw on the thread, is that you're discharging too many people. There's one that said from 9, revoke 5 discharges. So as a doctor, at what point, is it a matter you're afraid of losing your job?
No. What happens is every doctor is held liable for anything that goes with your patient, because the moment...
Even when it's a directive from...
Yes. There is no, unless it's another consultant and it's on a medical ground that you are being told, don't do X, Y. It's someone who is senior to you who says, no, for this patient, let's be cautious before we discharge. But on purely for business, you will be held liable on your own, because the moment that patient complains to the medical board, you will stand alone, and there's no one who will be able to stand with you.
So does that make it safer for you as the hospital owners? If you know, I'll give Dr. Kigondu pressure, who will then not discharge Dan, then if anything is found out, he'll take responsibility as a hospital owner, you're safe.
No. Still, as a hospital owner, what you need to realize is you still have stakeholders. Like if you have an insurance, if that patient is an insurance patient, and your insurance company realizes that's what you are doing, do you know what happens? They will revoke your partnership with them. From today henceforth, you will not be able to see their patients. So that means for a simple, small patient, maybe you would have earned 3,000 shilling extra. You will lose a business that you are doing with that company worth millions. There's no one who wants to risk that. So there are always those checks and balances that happen for every patient.
So let me ask you straight. Are you saying that we don't have cases of management interfering with the doctor's operations?
I would not tell you 100% that doesn't happen. Of course, we are Kenyans. You will have a few bad elements in every sector and in every institution. You will have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10 facilities. It will happen. But it doesn't mean that that is the norm.
Also,
that's what I'm trying to say.
I also deny that hospitals, you'll find higher charges for insurance payments than for cash payments.
No, you know what happens? As a hospital, this is what happens with insurance companies. Before they empanel you, that's the first thing that you need to realize, that every hospital does not have the right to see the patients for insurance X. So it's the insurance that has private panel providers. So before they empanel you and tell you, okay, this is what you will do for us, you will see our patients, you agree on pricing. You have a price list that you agree on, seeing their patients. So they will tell you, this is what you will charge consultation, this is what you will charge the bed, this is what you will charge for drugs, this is the markup we accept for certain drugs. After that is when you start seeing their patients. And if you go against that agreement and that contract, they will dismiss your claim. They will reject it. So when the normal man thinks, or the mwananchi thinks that I'm being overcharged because I have, it's an agreement that the insurance has already gotten into with the hospital. Some insurances have gone beyond that. Like for outpatient, they will tell you, for me to see my patients, your bill cannot go beyond 3,500 or 4,000 shilling, maximum. And treat that patient, whether he needs lab tests, drugs, consultation, all must fit into this amount.
Okay.
So hospitals have agreed to that as well. So it means it's not like because you have an insurance card, then I start. The only difference is what people don't realize is when you go to the reception and you ask, is it cash or insurance? The reason why you are being asked is to verify, to go and look at, because they have different processes. If it's insurance, there are a lot of checks that need to go through. Like you will need to put in your fingerprint, you need to put in your, for you to be able to be seen, seek pre-authorization, check you have the right balance. You can't just walk in and be seen.
Okay, yes. And he's really doing a job of defending the hospitals, even when people have actually shown, and we'll follow this up, but Dr. Kigondu, don't you, maybe it's just me, do you potentially see there's still a loophole even in the explanation in regards to, I'm thinking for the Mwananchi, I am sick.
Yes.
But it seems there's people here who have decided we can actually make money through this person.
Yes. The biggest perpetrator of these private ills is the government. Since unconstitutional devolution of health and lack of formation of a health service commission, and then you got it very right. That lack of employment, fear of being fired is the biggest driver to such things. When I completed school, I was automatically employed as a doctor. I had a salary. I was more or less independent. I used to also do a few of the working in to supplement income because the government salary was not enough at private facilities. But I was not subject to management twisting me to do an ethical practice because I needed the money or I was fearing being fired as such. So when there was unconstitutional devolution of health and no health service commission, which is what the Kenya Medical Association is pushing for, doctors finish internship, they are put out. Doctors and all health workers generally, nurses, clinical officers, and they are put out there.
Okay.
Economy is bad. So when they are employed by such employers and told you must hit this target, they must, otherwise they'll be fired. So if we had an institution that puts people directly into public service so that they do not become dependent on that particular private. And private is for profit. And it's private for profit is not a bad thing, but if done ethically. But when you have a competing economic situation where you are having no alternative, then you are subject to being manipulated. So a health service commission would really help this situation. So Mwananchi, if they want to protect themselves, need to tell their government to establish a health service commission so that there's automatic employment, increase in public facilities. If you are going to a private hospital because there is no alternative, the public is not functioning, then the problem is not the private facility. It's the...
Actually, the big hospitals that people are complaining about, majorly there were big ones, are registered as non-profit making. So the assumption that it's the profiteers or the profit-making hospitals are the ones who are overcharging is false. You will find the mid-range hospitals that are lower in terms of cost or charging the lowest compared to the bigger hospitals are the ones that are said to be registered as profit-making. But the biggest big hospitals that you can name them are the ones who are registered as non-profit making. And for every procedure, I have seen people saying, oh, the billing, there was something incorrect.
Yes.
It happens. You have 300-bed hospital, it's being done by a billing clerk, procedures are done left, right, center. The clinical workers don't participate in billing you. What they do is they work on trying to treat you, checking your vitals. So you will find someone else will be coming, checking what has been done, manually be entering things that have been done. You will have errors. You will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
But when the errors are too many,
no.
It look suspect.
Who has measured those errors and said, out of 300 or 10, 15 patients who are discharged in a day in a hospital, you will find that there is only one bill maybe that has an error.
But I'm saying, because there are cases where you'll hear a number of errors, what has been called errors happening in one institution. Isn't that suspect now? Either there's someone who's trying to fleece or they just have poor workmanship.
And that's where now the issue just becomes that it's just an accusation. You see, there are so many people who will wake up and say, oh, I was that hospital, I was billed 1 million, I was billed this. And perhaps if you go back and look at that person and tell them, okay, give us the evidence of the bill or whatever it is that you had paid, you might find the guy has never been in a hospital for the last 10 years. So at the moment, everyone will wake up and say, for the likes, for the clicks, for the retweets, I was done this, I was done then. Then just tell them, come out, give us the evidence. Or go to the medical board and table your evidence. You will find maybe 1 or 2 or none will show up. So out of 1,000 people who are accused, only 1 or 2 people showing up saying, this is what happened. And that's why I'm telling you, errors will always be there.
Dr. Kigondu, as we come to a close, because I think I just wanted to get the point for you to deny or agree, which you've tried to swim around. And unfortunately, it's a very serious matter.
No. I'm not, the first thing that I have told you is, definitely you will have a few places. I'm not saying hospitals are 100% perfect.
Okay.
And I'm not telling you that 100% the billing will be correct. And I'm not telling you that you will have 100% managers who will not do those things. But it's what percentage are we looking at? And I have told you there are many other measures that have been put in place by the insurance, by everyone else, to limit this kind of behavior where you are doing things without having any checks and balances. And that's why insurances have put limits to everything. And that's, if you look at, even for NHIF, they will tell you, you are entitled only to one surgery, or you are entitled only to this, or you are only entitled to this. The reason is to limit, and you get the right things done at the right time.
Okay. Dr. Kigondu, in closing, and moving away from saying it's the government's fault, okay? Because in such a case, because now we're dealing with the doctors, what action is, one, should a person who feels aggrieved take, just in the event that there's someone who's watching and can actually see the discrepancies, which he says are minimal, the discrepancies take, and what action is taken on the doctors and the management?
And this is the problem. It's not the doctor. You see, the hospital.
But if the doctor agrees to do it, they've gone against their oath.
Yes, but now, you see, you have, exactly. But that, as Dr. Abdi has correctly said, you are using rumors, so to speak. Huh? So the hospital must be separated as an entity from the health worker. Let me even use health worker because there are many, including a clinical officer, nursing staff. Yeah. So if someone aggrieved, they can take it up as, he says, with the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, which currently 3 months down the line has not been constituted, the board. So you can do that.
So we are stuck.
We are not, now, the government has not constituted the board. Everything falls in terms of regulation on the government.
Okay, what action is taken on the doctors?
No, investigation. Before you take any action on anything, you have done what is called assumed guilt. Before any action is taken.
No, I'm saying in the event that the audit is done and you're found guilty, what action is taken?
An action is taken according to what mistake have you done. You get? Is it a clinical mistake? Is it you get what I mean? Okay. For instance, there is defined actions in terms of healthcare.
You can even lose your license.
You can lose your license. For instance, if we find that you have assisted abetting unethical behavior. Okay. And that was very clear. But usually the hospital owner there are issues in billing. It's not the doctor. The doctor has treated, but there is this system for billing.
But the doctor discharges
and
admits. It's the doctor who makes the decision on discharging and admitting.
Yes.
So the doctor, if they do that, like the example we gave here is that you're told, do not discharge 9 people, discharge 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the doctor attempts can abet to this situation.
Correct. If someone thinks in their hearts, and people have resigned because of such practice, where you are told as you say no, and that is the correct thing to do. If you think that these people are pushing you to an ethical bill, resign.
Okay.
Actually, what you
5 seconds. Then we go.
What you realize is that it's the public actually who misuse their insurances. You will go for shopping after charge in a mall, then you realize, by the way, I have an insurance card. And you walk into the nearest clinic within the mall, and you start giving the doctor 1,001 complaints that are non-existent, all in the name because you want to collect drugs. So you will say, huyu mtoto alikuwa anakohoa last week. Now, what that does to the doctor is you force the doctor to start looking for things, because if he dismisses you and things go wrong, you go home and he tells you, he just looks at you and says, Dan, by the way, you are not sick, just go home. So what does he do? He does defensive medicine. He takes you to the lab, because later, when things go wrong, he can say, I have investigated, there was nothing wrong, and I told this patient to go home. But It's the same person when you dismiss and you tell them, they will go and say the manager, or they will go to social media and say, I've gone to this hospital and I was not given anything, I was told to go home.
The Health CS has an event this morning, and Eunice Omolo is going to be hopefully getting her view on the same and what needs to be done in light of the council. He's spoken about, there's a lot of issues that we cannot exhaust here, but at least we've just first of all, gotten some sense of what you feel as people in the industry, just for the sake of Mwananchi who's watching and feels that they're exposed. They feel they're exposed when they've got all these issues going on. I've been speaking to Dr. Simon Kigondu, who's the Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Association, that's KMA, as well as Dr. Abdi Mohammed, who's the Chairman of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen, and for giving us your views much as I'll leave it at that. Now, thanks for joining us on AM Live Plus. And even as we close, just want to remind you that we are following a number of stories for you in the course of this day to ensure we can inform you and educate you at the end as the day goes along in regards to our news content. In our newsroom, there is a lot of planning that's ongoing right now just to set in place the different things that are happening. So the picture you're seeing on your screen now is a picture of our newsroom where we have people who are still getting ready to either go on their assignments, or some of them are already working on some stories here as we plan for the day ahead, because it's likely to be a busy day, and it seems health is a big one today. Almost every part of the country has issues to do with health, which we cannot in any way underestimate. Thanks for joining us on AM Live Plus and as the extension of AM Live.